Chapter 93. An hour later. 2 weeks. I still have 2 weeks to fight for the opportunity in the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. Wang Kai nodded as he slowly walked out of Sandoria's residence. There was a determined look in his eyes. The Martial Soul Hall would officially hold Wang Kai's Holy Disciple coronation ceremony in a month's time. When that time came, the Martial Soul Hall would invite the 2 empires, the 3 high sects, and the 4 low sects, as well as other renowned powers on the Doloa continent, to attend the ceremony. Not only would the important figures from these powers attend, but many of the younger generation from these powers would also be present. Therefore, this wasn't just a coronation ceremony for Wang Kai alone. It was also a silent contest between the Martial Soul Hall and the younger generation of the various powers. Of course, the Martial Soul Hall wouldn't be so stupid as to reveal the fact that Wang Kai had become a Soul King when he was 10.5 years old. According to what Sendoryu and Wang Kai had said, Wang Kai would be described as a 17-year-old Soul King to the public. Although a 17-year-old rank 55 Soul King was still very stunning, it was already within the realm of common sense that most Soul Masters could accept. He wouldn't attract assassination attempts from the various powers because he was too talented. In order to prepare for this ceremony, Wang Kai also had to spend 2 weeks learning about the ceremony. However, during the first 2 weeks, Sendoryu instructed Wang Kai to rest well and accompany Chihiro Snow. Greater authority meant greater responsibility. After becoming a holy disciple, Wang Kai would definitely find it harder to free himself. If he wanted to fight for the opportunity in the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, he had to take advantage of this precious week. Evening, in a small plane. A 5th grade soul strengthening pill. Although I've never refined a 5th grade pill before, I have no choice but to give it a try now. If I fail, I'll have to spend a lot of points to buy the pill. After ending his cultivation with Chihiro Snow, Wang Kai came to the small plane. He thought to himself as he picked out dozens of medicinal ingredients and placed them on a jade plate. Human Tier 5th grade Soul Strengthening Bamboo, Human Tier 4th grade Blood Essence Grass, 1000-year Steel-winged Snake Bone, Human Tier 4th grade Blue Crystal Vine. Unlike the 4th grade Human Tier medicinal pills, the number of heavenly and earthly treasures required to refine a 5th grade medicinal pill was close to 30. The medicinal materials for 2 sets of soul-strengthening pills filled 4 jade plates. Chaotic Mountain and River Cauldron. Rise. Wang Kai's mind, his soul power surged, and the chaotic Mountain and River Cauldron appeared in front of him. Following this, Wang Kai's 4th soul ring. 3,000 heaven-incinerating flames. In the next moment, a wisp of purple-black flame that flickered with a strange light appeared on the tip of Wang Kai's right middle finger. Wang Kai gently flicked his finger, and the 3,000 heaven-burning flames flew straight into the chaotic mountain and river cauldron. Human Tier 5th grade Soul Strengthening Pill. While thinking, Wang Kai shot a beam of soul power towards the jade plate, bringing the green Soul Strengthening Bamboo in front of him. Soul Strengthening Bamboo was a strange plant that could only grow at the bottom of the sea, where the concentration of soul power was higher than 15 standard, and where there was no sunlight. Soul Strengthening Bamboo couldn't be eaten directly, but it could be refined into a pill that could greatly increase a soul master's spiritual power. Of course, generally speaking, very few soul masters would waste natural treasures to refine soul-strengthening bamboo into a pill. On the contrary, only by carrying soul-strengthening bamboo for a long time could one bring out the greatest effect of this natural treasure. Although it was only Human Tier 5th grade, soul-strengthening bamboo was still very precious even in the ancient Doloa continent where the concentration of soul power was much higher. Usually, only the descendants of peak Doloa or peerless Doloa who stood at the peak of the Doloa continent were qualified to wear accessories made of soul-strengthening bamboo to subtly increase their spiritual power. Now, as the Doloa continent's overall soul power density had greatly decreased, treasures like the soul-strengthening bamboo had been extinct for many years. Even the Marshall Soul Hall hadn't been able to find a single stalk. Perhaps only the sea god's island, which was the ruler of the ocean, could possibly have a soul-strengthening bamboo. In the angel realm's dark blue sea, Wang Kai had killed 2 powerful 5,000-year aquatic soul beasts before he obtained these 2 extremely precious soul-strengthening bamboo in a cave at the bottom of the sea. If it weren't for the fact that the opportunity in the Icefire Yin-Yang well was even more tempting, and that time didn't allow him to slowly display the effects of the soul-strengthening bamboo, Wang Kai definitely wouldn't have rashly used the soul-strengthening bamboo to refine the soul-strengthening pill. The soul-strengthening bamboo arrived above the chaotic mountain and river cauldron, but it didn't melt as quickly as the human tier 4th grade soul-strengthening treasures. On the contrary, after burning for nearly a minute in the 3,000 heaven-incinerating flames, this short soul-strengthening bamboo began to soften slowly. After another 5 minutes, the soul-strengthening bamboo finally melted into a ball of green medicinal liquid the size of a ping-pong ball. Under the burning of the flames, this green medicinal liquid slowly bubbled. Not long after, a little bit of black impurities appeared in the green medicinal liquid and were removed by Wang Kai. 10 minutes later, the impurities in the green medicinal liquid were removed, and the ping-pong ball-sized medicinal liquid had shrunk by nearly a third. Wang Kai finally heaved a sigh of relief. The most crucial step was completed. Not only was the number of human tier 4th grade soul-strengthening treasures more abundant, but the difficulty of processing them was also relatively lower. With the multitasking realm, Wang Kai could process a total of 5 types of soul-strengthening treasures at once, excluding the need to control the temperature of the flames. After nearly an hour, more than 30 types of soul-strengthening treasures were refined and purified by him, turning into balls of colorful medicinal liquid that floated above the chaotic mountain and river cauldron. Fuse for me. In a state of full concentration, Wang Kai's mental power separated a part of the medicinal liquid from one medicinal liquid after another, and continuously mixed with the green medicinal liquid formed by the central soul-strengthening bamboo. Half an hour later, the original green-colored soul-strengthening bamboo medicinal liquid had already expanded several times. A small clump of light yellow-green colored medicinal liquid the size of a red date appeared in front of Wang Kai. Soon after, a new round of purification of impurities began. Not bad, condense for me. Another half an hour passed, and no new impurities appeared from the medicinal liquid. Wang Kai's mental power frantically compressed this pearl-sized medicinal liquid, and began the 3rd step of condensing the pill. Different from the soul-nurturing pill and the spirit-clearing pill, a section of soul-strengthening bamboo could only refine one soul-strengthening pill. Under the compression of Wang Kai's mental power, the medicinal liquid finally began to undergo a magical change, and a yellow and green medicinal pill appeared in its embryonic form. Now that the embryonic pill was formed, it was time to nourish it. With a pat of the chaotic mountain and river cauldron, the fire of the 3,000 heaven-burning flames in the cauldron suddenly decreased. With a light tap of his finger, the embryonic pill entered the cauldron. Wang Kai changed the pill seal in his hand, and traces of pill chi poured into the chaotic mountain and river cauldron and continuously integrated into the embryonic pill. Dozens of minutes later, the surface of the embryonic pill had become incomparably round under the nourishment of the pill chi. Wang Kai's face revealed a trace of satisfaction, and immediately, his hands shook on both sides of the chaotic mountain and river cauldron. Chapter 94. Soul-Strengthening Pill Done. Following Wang Kai's attack, the 3,000 heaven-burning fire in the chaotic mountain and river cauldron was immediately extinguished. Taking out a jade bottle, Wang Kai nodded in satisfaction after storing the soul-strengthening pill that flew out. Inside the sparkling and translucent jade bottle, a pill the size of a longan lay in the center of the bottle, emitting a strange, eye-catching color. Looking at this hard-earned 5th-grade soul-strengthening pill, Wang Kai's eyes revealed an unconcealable smile. 65% of the medicinal strength? Not bad. Using his spiritual power, Wang Kai probed the medicinal strength of this soul-strengthening pill. Although it didn't enter the high grade, the quality of this pill was already one of the best among mid-grade pills. Wang Kai was already very satisfied with this quality. For Wang Kai, this soul-strengthening pill was his first time refining a fifth-grade pill. Being able to refine a mid-grade pill was already not easy. One had to know that many alchemists often needed several years of research, experience countless failures, and refine hundreds and thousands of useless pills before they could refine their first low-grade fifth-grade pill. Moreover, if one wanted to become a proficient fifth-grade alchemist, these alchemists might need to spend 2 or even 3 times the amount of medicinal ingredients for training. In the current Dolua continent, the soul power between heaven and earth was far inferior to that of ancient times. Heaven and earth treasures were almost extinct. Perhaps this was the reason why alchemy and alchemists had disappeared from the current Dolua continent. For Wang Kai, if it wasn't for Xiao Guang's all-round support, even if he had the inheritance of introduction to alchemy, essence of alchemy, and obtained theoretical knowledge equivalent to that of a ninth-grade alchemist, it would be impossible for him to refine a fifth-grade human-tier pill in just one attempt. Although the system's intelligence was only at the elementary level, it was already so powerful. Wang Kai couldn't imagine if there would be an even more outstanding system intelligence in the future, and its performance would be so outstanding. A human-tier fifth-rank soul-strengthening pill, even though it's only a mid-tier one, should be able to help me break through to the 7-tasking stage. With a thought, Wang Kai grabbed the soul-strengthening pill with his soul force and swallowed it. As soon as the soul-strengthening pill entered Wang Kai's mouth, a mixture of yellow and green medicinal power rushed into Wang Kai's sea of consciousness. To be able to produce such a rich medicinal effect without even refining it, the soul-strengthening pill was indeed worthy of being called the cream of the crop among human-tier fifth-grade medicinal pills. Not long after, streams of warm medicinal power rose from Wang Kai's lower abdomen, passed through his meridians, and quickly rushed into Wang Kai's sea of consciousness. Compared to the clear spirit pill and soul-nurturing pill from before, this soul-strengthening pill's medicinal strength was actually more than 10 times stronger. Streams of medicinal power rushed into Wang Kai's sea of consciousness, and without waiting for Wang Kai to refine them, the medicinal power had already spread to all parts of Wang Kai's sea of consciousness and continuously transformed into Wang Kai's spiritual power. And often, just as one stream of medicinal power finished transforming, 2 or 3 new streams of medicinal power would surge out, fighting to fill the gap from before. Just by relying on the automatic transformation of the medicinal power, the soul-strengthening pill provided Wang Kai with benefits that were more than twice as much as the clear spirit pill from before. However, if he didn't take the initiative to refine the medicinal power, then the speed of the medicinal power's transformation was still too slow, and the actual efficiency wasn't high either. A lot of the medicinal power would dissipate in the process of assimilation. Because of this, Wang Kai crazily urged his spiritual power, and streams of spiritual power reached out, wrapping around the yellow medicinal power with faint green dots in them, and doing his best to refine them. In less than 10 minutes, the total amount of Wang Kai's spiritual power had already increased by nearly 20%, and the gap of spiritual power he needed to do 7 things at once was completely filled. A soft sound came from his sea of consciousness, and Wang Kai only felt that his mind suddenly became clear, and he directly broke through the realm of 7 things at once. Following that, his sharpness of thinking, memory, and comprehension all increased by a large margin. At the same time, as the bottleneck that imprisoned Wang Kai's sea of consciousness was broken, his sea of consciousness also completed the expansion once again, and the area suddenly increased by several times. But after the new area in his sea of consciousness appeared, Wang Kai's original spiritual power constantly rushed to the expanded area and left enough space for the new spiritual power. After helping Wang Kai to advance to 7 things at once, the medicinal power of the soul-strengthening pill was still abundant, and it still rose from his stomach continuously, and then entered Wang Kai's sea of consciousness. After breaking through to 7 things at once, Wang Kai's speed of refining the medicinal power also increased by a large margin. With Wang Kai's crazy refining, the remaining medicinal power in his sea of consciousness finally began to thin out slowly, and at the same time, the gap of spiritual power he needed to do 8 things at once was also filled up bit by bit. 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%, 20%, 95%. With the disappearance of the medicinal power, Wang Kai's spiritual power not only perfectly broke through from 6 things at once to 7 things at once, but now Wang Kai was only 1 step away from the next promotion to 8 things at once. It was worthy of being the leader of the human rank grade 5 medicinal pills. Although the quality was only intermediate, the medicinal power of a single soul-strengthening pill far exceeded the total of 20 spirit-clearing pills. This is great. Feeling the boundless spiritual power in his sea of consciousness, Wang Kai laughed heartily. Soon, he would be able to split a part of his soul to control the substitute puppet, and send his main body to fight for the opportunity in the icefire yin-yang well. Since the medicinal power of a single soul-strengthening pill was enough for him to break through to 8 things at once, Wang Kai naturally wouldn't waste the other soul-strengthening bamboo that he had originally prepared by refining it into a medicinal pill. After consuming the soul-strengthening pill, it was very difficult to continue carrying the soul-strengthening bamboo around to increase Wang Kai's spiritual power. Right now, the best way was to make this soul-strengthening bamboo into an accessory and give it to Chihiro Snow. Holding the soul-strengthening bamboo in his hand, Wang Kai's soul power surged out and turned into a small soul power knife, and he cut off the corners of the soul-strengthening bamboo. Immediately after, Wang Kai's soul power wrapped around the soul-strengthening bamboo that had become much rounder. Following the circulation of Wang Kai's soul power, the somewhat rough surface of the soul-strengthening bamboo was continuously polished and gradually became smooth. After everything was done, Wang Kai condensed a trace of the 3,000 heaven-burning fire between his fingers and began to carve on the surface of the soul-strengthening bamboo. After a moment, the carving was completed, and Wang Kai held the soul-strengthening bamboo in his hand and sized it up for a moment. Looking at the words Wang Kai on the front and Chihiro Snow on the side, Wang Kai nodded in satisfaction. Presumably, that little girl Chihiro Snow would be very happy after receiving this gift. After exchanging for a sturdy red rope to tie up the bamboo tablet, Wang Kai placed the bamboo tablet in a small jade box that he had prepared beforehand and took a deep breath. Now, it was time to completely bring this beginner-rank substitute puppet into his control. Chapter 95. Taking large strides to the side of the small plane, Wang Kai stretched his muscles, then sat down cross-legged. Holding his breath, Wang Kai calmed his mind completely, and then focused all his attention on his sea of consciousness. Feeling the vigorous spiritual power in his sea of consciousness, Wang Kai nodded in satisfaction. According to Little Guang's previous calculations, after his spiritual power reached the level of doing 7 things at once, his spiritual power was enough to split a part of his soul to control the substitute puppet, without causing irreversible damage to his body and soul. Now, Wang Kai's spiritual power was close to the level of doing 8 things at once. To him, splitting a part of his soul would only be easier and safer. After confirming the state of his sea of consciousness, Wang Kai finally activated the soul-splitting secret technique. Following the continuous advancement of the secret technique, Wang Kai's spiritual power in his sea of consciousness slowly split into 2 sides. Of course, this wasn't an even split, but rather a trend of more on one side and less on the other. Half an hour passed. At this time, Wang Kai's spiritual power had already split into 2 distinct masses of different sizes. In the middle of these 2 masses of spiritual power, there was a strange blank area without any spiritual power. At this time, the first step of the soul-splitting secret technique had been completed. However, the first step of the soul-splitting secret technique was only the preparation stage. There was still at least 80% of the additional work needed to complete the split. At the same time, the first step of the soul-splitting secret technique was relatively gentle. It only split the spiritual power, and wouldn't cause irreversible damage to Wang Kai's sea of consciousness. After dividing the sea of consciousness, the second step of the soul-splitting secret technique was a lot more dangerous. In this step, the soul master needed to completely split his sea of consciousness, and completely separate the slightly smaller mass of spiritual power, turning it into an independent part of his soul. This step of the soul-splitting secret technique was an irreversible process. The splitting of the soul was a permanent loss to the soul master's overall spiritual power. Furthermore, if a soul master's spiritual power was insufficient and they rashly split their soul, their sea of consciousness could be damaged and their future potential would be damaged. They could even become mentally retarded because of the damage to their soul. Even for someone like Wang Kai, who could split his soul when his spiritual power was strong enough, once he split his soul, Wang Kai's spiritual power would drop permanently. Furthermore, splitting one's soul was an extremely difficult and dangerous step. If it failed, it would cause irreversible damage to the soul master's sea of consciousness. Because of this, a soul cultivator had to be extremely careful when using a soul-splitting technique. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. However, compared to the slight decrease in his spiritual power and the potential dangers that he might encounter, the opportunities in the ice-fire yin-yang well were clearly far more alluring. Furthermore, with Xiao Guang's assistance, the soul-splitting secret technique that was incomparably dangerous to other soul cultivators wasn't that frightening in Wang Kai's eyes. Steeling his heart, Wang Kai continued to use the soul-splitting technique. Along with the activation of the secret method, the boundary of Wang Kai's sea of consciousness suddenly began to shrink inwards rapidly at the boundary between the two masses of mental strength. Very quickly, Wang Kai's spiritual power was enveloped by the boundary of his sea of consciousness, forming a large and a small portion. Only the middle was connected. Break. Following the activation of the secret technique, the small ball of spiritual power directly separated from the large ball of spiritual power and formed Wang Kai's first split soul. Following the formation of the split soul, Wang Kai immediately felt an intense pain in his sea of consciousness. It was as if he was going to faint at any time, and sweat uncontrollably flowed out of Wang Kai's body. Clenching his teeth and enduring the intense pain, Wang Kai used the last of his energy and directly sent the split soul into the control core of the substitute puppet. After sending out the split soul, Wang Kai hurriedly took out a spirit-cleansing pill and directly swallowed it into his stomach. He frantically refined it and began to recover his severely damaged sea of consciousness and spiritual power. After a total of 3 spirit-cleansing pills, the intense pain in Wang Kai's sea of consciousness finally subsided. Although the pain had subsided, Wang Kai's spiritual power still directly decreased by a large amount after splitting his soul. From the realm of being on the verge of breaking through to the realm of being able to do 8 things at once, it fell to the level of being able to do 7 things at once. Following the drastic decrease in his spiritual power, Wang Kai only felt that his perception had declined by a large amount. His thoughts seemed to have become somewhat sluggish, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. However, at this time, Wang Kai was pleasantly surprised to see that after receiving a strand of his split soul, the substitute puppet's eyes immediately showed signs of life. Its temperament also suddenly became lively, almost no different from Wang Kai. At the same time, Wang Kai felt that a special connection had been established between himself and the substitute puppet beside him. Wang Kai's mind moved, and the substitute puppet's right hand directly raised with his mind, then slowly lowered it. How magical! Feeling the manipulation just now, Wang Kai could not help but marvel in his heart. After injecting a strand of his split soul into the substitute puppet, this substitute puppet seemed to have become an extension of Wang Kai's body. Although the puppet was still a little unfamiliar to control because it had just been injected with the split soul, Wang Kai could not help but nod repeatedly at the novelty of obtaining a second body. Furthermore, just like how a person could control the movements of two pairs of hands at the same time, Wang Kai could control both his body and the substitute puppet at the same time without any interference between the two. Although Wang Kai was still a little unaccustomed to controlling two bodies at the same time in the beginning, after half an hour of adapting and training, he was completely used to controlling both his body and the substitute puppet at the same time. At this time, Wang Kai had already figured out the strength of the substitute puppet. Just like his main body, this substitute puppet was also a soul king. However, although this substitute puppet had inherited Wang Kai's appearance and temperament, it did not inherit Wang Kai's martial soul. In fact, this substitute puppet did not have a martial soul or a soul ring. Fortunately, although it did not have a martial soul or a soul ring, this substitute puppet's soul power was at the level of a soul king. Its physical constitution was also stronger than that of an ordinary soul king. Relying on its fearless nature, this substitute puppet could still cause some trouble for a soul king. Of course, Wang Kai did not purchase this substitute puppet for fighting. Therefore, although its fighting strength was not as strong as he had imagined, Wang Kai was still very satisfied with this substitute puppet. If it was just to substitute him for a short period of time to cultivate, this substitute puppet would be enough to deceive everyone. Not bad. Today I'll test whether this substitute puppet is feasible. If there are no problems, I'll head directly to the setting sun forest tonight to seize the opportunity in the Icefire Yin-Yang well. Wang Kai nodded with satisfaction and left the small plain, returning to the Dolua continent. Chapter 96. The next morning. Schwer, you're early as usual today. Stretching lazily, Wang Kai opened his sleepy eyes. The first thing he saw was Chihiro Snow, who was wearing a cute white dress and sitting on the big chair in his bedroom. She was reading a thick book while quietly waiting for him. "Good morning, brother Wang Kai." Hearing Wang Kai's call, Chihiro Snow's eyes revealed a trace of joy. She quickly put down the book in her hand, got up, and walked to Wang Kai's side with small quick step. Her fair face leaned on Wang Kai's shoulder, and a gentle voice came out from her cherry lips. "Because I wanted to see brother Wang Kai as soon as possible, Wang Xuan naturally came early." Pausing for a moment, Chihiro Snow continued in a somewhat distressed tone. "However, I heard from the maids in the Green Xian Hall that brother Wang Kai cultivated in the secret room for a very long time last night and only went to bed very late. Therefore, Wang Shui didn't disturb brother Wang Kai and wanted to let brother Wang Kai have a good rest." "Oh, so that's how it is. So Shui is really a cute and obedient child." As he stretched out his left hand and gently stroked the girl's snow-white forehead, Wang Kai took out the jade box that he had prepared yesterday from the bedside cabinet. He gently opened the lid of the box, and an exquisite dark green amulet made from soul-strengthening bamboo was displayed within. "Thank you, brother Wang Kai." Hearing Wang Kai's praise and feeling the warmth of Wang Kai's large hand, Chihiro Snow's face revealed a sweet smile. Immediately, she saw the jade box in Wang Kai's hand. Her big watery eyes suddenly lit up, and she asked with some anticipation in her voice, "Is this the gift you're giving me, brother Wang Kai?" "I swear you're really smart. You guessed it right away." As he spoke, Wang Kai extended his hand and took out the amulet. Then, he gently placed it on Qian Ren's snow-white neck. Then, Wang Kai explained calmly, "In the angel realm, I obtained a heavenly treasure by chance. If you carry this treasure around with you for a long time, it can subtly increase the spiritual power of a soul master. Because of that, I refined this treasure a little and made it into a protective talisman for Shui. Shui, what do you think of it?" Gently turning the amulet over, Chihiro Snow saw her and Wang Kai's names engraved on the surface of the amulet. Instantly, Qian Rinxue's face involuntarily flushed with a faint blush. Then, she shyly and gratefully said in a low voice, "This gift. I really like it. Thank you so much, Big Brother Wang Kai." As she spoke, Chihiro Snow pressed even harder against Wang Kai's body. As long as doesn't mind the craftsmanship of this amulet. Feeling the beautiful girl getting closer and closer to him, Wang Kai couldn't help but smile dotingly. After that, Wang Kai reminded her again, you must always wear this amulet with you. Only when you wear it will this amulet be effective. It'll continuously increase your spiritual power and give a better chance of advancing in the future." "Yes, I understand, Big Brother Wang Kai. I'll definitely wear this amulet with me." After hearing Wang Kai's words, Chihiro Snow nodded her head. Then, she said gratefully, "Right, Big Brother Wang Kai, such a treasure that can increase spiritual power must be very precious, right? Is really touched that you're giving me such a precious treasure." "It's nothing." While stroking Chihiro Snow's soft golden hair, Wang Kai said, "In my heart, Er's value is much more precious than this amulet." "Thank you, Big Brother Wang Kai. Big Brother Wang Kai is the best." After hearing Wang Kai's words, Chihiro Snow was overjoyed. Then, she gently moved closer to Wang Kai's handsome face and kissed him a few times. "Good girl, is so obedient." After kissing her back gently, Wang Kai held Chihiro Snow's hand and said, "Where do you want to go with me today?" Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already evening. It seems that Chihiro Snow can't see through the mystery of the substitute puppet for the time being. Then today, I can set off to grab the opportunity in the Icefire Yin-Yang well. After a day of sightseeing, Wang Kai said goodbye to Chihiro Snow and returned to the profound Azure Mansion. After giving away the jade token, Wang Kai took the opportunity to release the substitute puppet while he hid in the small plane. At the same time, he attached the plane's beacon to the substitute puppet. After a day of careful observation, Chihiro Snow didn't notice the secret of the substitute puppet. Therefore, using the substitute puppet to hide from Chihiro Snow for a week was completely feasible. After a while, Wang Kai left the profound Azure Mansion. Half an hour later, Wang Kai used his divided soul to control the substitute puppet and returned to the Green Xian Hall. At the same time, his main body had changed into ordinary clothes and put on a face-changing mask. He quietly left the outer city of the Martial Spirit Saint City. As the core of the Martial Spirit Palace, a soul master who wanted to enter the Martial Spirit Saint City naturally had to go through a strict inspection. However, for those who left the Martial Spirit Saint City, the inspection was much weaker. After 4 years, Wang Kai was finally able to leave Martial Soul Holy City by himself. About 5 kilometers away from the outer city of the Martial Spirit Saint City, Wang Kai put on a cloak that he had purchased at a high price from the system shop. It was a cloak that could conceal his body. Then, he started running. Although he had the substitute puppet, once Sendoryu personally came to find him, the substitute puppet would definitely not be able to hide from Sendoryu, who was already a peerless Dolua. Although he could say that it was the opportunity in the angel realm, it was very likely that his secret would be exposed. Now that he was shrouded in the thick malice of the world, Wang Kai didn't want anything to go wrong. The sooner he returned to the Martial Spirit Palace, the safer his situation would be. The Sunset Forest was thousands of kilometers away from the Martial Spirit Saint City. Even if his speed and endurance far exceeded that of an ordinary soul master, his time was very precious and couldn't be wasted. Striding with all his strength, Wang Kai's speed quickly approached 100 meters per second. On the path that Wang Kai was moving, a gust of wind suddenly blew. As he ran at high speed, the night wind that blew against his face was as sharp as a blade. Feeling the stinging pain on his face, Wang Kai slightly activated his soul force and formed a thin layer of soul force in front of him. Only then did the discomfort brought about by the wind pressure gradually disappear. With the rapid running, the magnificent martial spirit Saint City behind Wang Kai became smaller and smaller. Soon, it turned into a small dot and finally disappeared from sight. Sunset Forest, Icefire in Yang Well, I'm coming. Chapter 97. 10 hours later, after a mad dash. Phew, I'm finally here. The setting sun forest is here. According to the map of the Doloa continent that Xiao Guang had scanned into the database, the dense and boundless forest in front of Wang Kai was the legendary treasure ground, the setting sun forest where the Icefire in Yang Well was located. Wang Kai finally let out a sigh of relief when he reached his destination. Running at close to 300 kilometers per hour at top speed left even Wang Kai feeling incomparably fatigued. If he didn't have the power of the earth to constantly replenish his energy, Wang Kai would have been completely exhausted in 10 minutes. And now, even though Wang Kai's stamina was still maintained at a relatively vigorous level with the continuous replenishment of the earth force, he wanted to have a good rest after 10 hours of intense running. After resting for about half an hour in the small plain, Wang Kai finally stepped into the setting sun forest. After advancing about 10 kilometers into the setting sun forest, Wang Kai silently instructed in his mind, Xiao Guang, show me the 3D map of the setting sun forest. At the same time, mark the locations of all the hills that are more than 100 meters tall. The setting sun forest was an enormous forest of soul beasts that spanned more than 50 kilometers. Although Wang Kai knew that the Icefire in Yang Well was definitely in the setting sun forest, he didn't know its exact location. If he used a blind search method, Wang Kai wouldn't be able to search the entire setting sun forest even after a month. Fortunately, Wang Kai had the help of Xiao Guang's elementary intelligence. At the same time, he also knew 3 special characteristics of the Icefire in Yang Well. First, the Icefire in Yang Well was located in a valley on a cliff. Second, the concentration of soul power near the Icefire in Yang Well was definitely much higher than outside. Third, the Icefire in Yang Well was a hot spring, and the surrounding temperature was much higher. With the help of these 3 pieces of information and Xiao Guang's powerful detection abilities, Wang Kai's search was no longer blind. But even so, Wang Kai still needed to spend a certain amount of time to find the Icefire in Yang Well. Of these 3 characteristics, the first one was undoubtedly the most convenient to search for. By limiting the search area to the hill, they had already eliminated 99% of the setting sun forest. After finding those hills, they would search according to the density and temperature of their soul force. This was undoubtedly much more efficient than searching blindly. Therefore, Wang Kai gave the corresponding order to Little Light in his Sea of Consciousness. Master, according to the known map of Sunset Forest, there are a total of 11 hills in Sunset Forest that meet the requirements. Following Little Light's prompt, a 3-dimensional map of the setting sun forest appeared in Wang Kai's mind. 11. Observing the location of the valleys marked in his Sea of Consciousness, Wang Kai nodded. Of these 11 hills, 4 were located at the edge of the setting sun forest, while the other 7 were located at the center of the forest. According to Wang Kai's hypothesis, the Icefire in Yang Well was most likely located in the core area of the setting sun forest. There were many soul masters who entered the setting sun forest to hunt soul beasts. If the Icefire in Yang Well was located at the edge of the forest, it was impossible for no one to discover it. Based on this, Wang Kai deduced that the Icefire in Yang Well should be located at one of the 7 hills in the depths of the setting sun forest. Having made up his mind, Wang Kai chose the closest one of the 7 hills to him and ran toward the map in his Sea of Consciousness. At the same time, he ordered Little Light to detect the concentration of soul force in the surrounding area. Unlike the outside world, there were no smooth roads in the setting sun forest. At the same time, the deeper he went into the setting sun forest, the more ancient trees and soul beasts there were. After 2 hours of running and fighting, Wang Kai finally arrived at his target location. It seems like it's not here. Wang Kai shook his head as he felt the temperature around him. Little light, detect the density of soul force around here. Wang Kai ordered to be safe. Yes, master. The density of soul force around here is 2.7 standard. Little light quickly replied to Wang Kai. 2.7 times the standard soul power density. This soul power density seemed very high, and it was close to 3 times the average soul power density of the Dolua continent. However, according to the knowledge in the true alchemy explanation, a place like the Icefire Yin-Yang Well that could produce 9th-grade heaven-rank treasures had to have a soul power density of at least 100 standard soul power densities. If the Icefire Yin-Yang Well was at the top of the mountain, the density of soul force shouldn't be as low as 2.7, even if there was a certain distance between them. However, Wang Kai didn't know if a place like the Icefire Yin-Yang Well had the ability to store soul force. If that was the case, the density of soul force around it wouldn't increase so much. To be safe, Wang Kai was prepared to climb to the top of the mountain to take a look. When he reached the bottom of the mountain, Wang Kai circulated his soul force slightly. Immediately, sharp Shura claws grew from Wang Kai's hands. However, Wang Kai's body didn't change at all at the same time. Part of Emperor Shura's possession, Wang Kai had obtained a new innate ability from his martial soul when he became a Soul King. According to Wang Kai's needs, Wang Kai could allow part of his body to enter the state of Emperor Shura's possession. He didn't need to transform his entire body into Shura. Thrusting his claws forward, Wang Kai's claws pierced into the rock layer. Then, using both his hands and feet, Wang Kai climbed up. It really isn't here. 20 minutes later, Wang Kai didn't find any traces of the Icefire Yin-Yang Well after searching the entire mountain top. It seemed like that mysterious treasure land wasn't here. Wang Kai didn't climb down slowly when he reached the edge of the cliff. Instead, Wang Kai circulated his soul force slightly and covered his entire body with his gravity domain. Then, he gently jumped down. Under the effects of the gravity domain, Wang Kai's gravitational force was reduced by 90%. His body also slowly descended to the ground. Not long after, Wang Kai's feet stepped onto the ground at the bottom of the mountain. It seems like I was overthinking things. Wang Kai shook his head and continued to rush to the next marked hill. The second, third, and fourth. Wang Kai didn't find any traces of the Icefire Yin-Yang Well even after searching for suspected locations. At this point, it was already dusk. Wang Kai felt a little helpless in his heart. He took advantage of the darkness of the night and continued to rush to the fifth suspected location in the north. Another hour passed, and Wang Kai could see a figure slowly emerging from a steep, cone-shaped depression in the distance. Wang Kai could sense that the temperature and soul power density around him had clearly increased. It seemed like the Icefire Yin-Yang Well was here. Just as Wang Kai was filled with joy, he suddenly heard an intense tremor in the ground. Then, he saw countless soul beasts appear in the distance, and they were all rushing in his direction. In front of Wang Kai, a beast tide had actually erupted without anyone noticing. Chapter 98. There were 5,000-year iron-head lions, 3,000-year bone-edged demon beasts, 4,000-year spirit flame bees. Wang Kai discovered dozens of thousand-year soul beasts amidst the incoming wave of soul beasts. More and more soul beasts were surging towards Wang Kai from a distance away. Thousand-year soul beasts weren't rare in the core region of the setting sun forest. Wang Kai had killed a few thousand-year soul beasts along the way. However, soul beasts generally had their own space to move about, and they rarely entered the hunting grounds of other soul beasts to provoke them. As a result, it was very rare to see so many soul beasts at the same time. Of course, normal soul masters wouldn't want to see such a spectacle. If they didn't have enough soul power, they would only die if they were caught in a wave of soul beasts. Even a soul sage would quickly run out of soul force if he was surrounded by so many thousand-year soul beasts, and would eventually be defeated. Generally speaking, only titled Dolua, who possessed unparalleled strength, and some soul masters who could fly because of their martial souls or soul skills, were confident of escaping from such a terrifying beast tied head-on. Great! However, it was obvious that Wang Kai wasn't one of those normal soul masters. Wang Kai didn't reveal any fear in his eyes as he watched the wave of soul beasts. Instead, he was extremely excited. To Wang Kai, who possessed the power of the earth and could continuously replenish his soul power, these soul beasts were just free experience and points. Emperor Shura possess. With a thought, Emperor Shura's projection behind Wang Kai quickly approached him and fused into his body. Following the fusion of Emperor Shura's martial soul, streaks of ferocious Shura's murderous aura surged from Wang Kai's body. At the same time, countless black scales with mysterious runes formed on the surface of Wang Kai's body and covered his entire body. Following the sound of bones growing, two sharp Shura's horns emerged from Wang Kai's forehead. At the same time, his palms swelled up slightly. Sharp and thick exoskeleton grew from Wang Kai's palms and turned into sharp and ferocious Shura's claws. Following this, streaks of dark flames burned on Wang Kai's Shura's scales. As the flames rose, Wang Kai's distracting thoughts and cowardice were completely eliminated. All that was left was a burning desire to fight. Shura's Emperor Armor. Shura's Dragon-Slaying Spear. Wang Kai's second and fourth black soul rings lit up at the same time as he channeled his soul power. With a wave of his right hand, an extremely pure blood-colored Shura's murderous aura condensed in Wang Kai's palm and turned into a blood-colored spear with a 5-clawed golden dragon carved on it. At the same time, the blood-colored murderous aura covered Wang Kai's body and condensed into a set of awe-inspiring Emperor Shura's Emperor armor that further protected his body. Fight! After putting on the armor, Wang Kai stomped his right foot on the ground and shot towards the group of soul beasts like a black arrow. Boundless Blood Spear. After killing his way into the group of soul beasts, Wang Kai waved his hands and his spear shot out like a dragon. With a blood-curdling scream, Wang Kai's spear pierced through the head of a 2,000-year three-tailed silver snake in front of him. With a light flick of his hands, the corpse of the three-tailed silver snake separated from the Shura's dragon-slaying spear and flew out. Its body, which weighed several hundred kilograms, landed on the ground with a dull thud and kicked up a cloud of dust. 1,000-year three-tailed silver snake killed. Origin experience +3. Points +300. A purple circle of light slowly rose from behind the corpse of the three-tailed silver snake. Wang Kai also heard a system announcement. For a 2,000-year soul beast, its fighting strength was comparable to that of an ordinary soul ancestor or a genius soul elder with a 1,000-year soul ring. However, in front of Wang Kai, it couldn't even withstand a single spear strike. After becoming a Soul King and going through the Angel's Secret Realms test, Wang Kai's fighting strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Even if he didn't use the Chaotic Mountain and River Cauldron with a 100,000-year soul ring, Wang Kai's fighting strength was comparable to that of an ordinary high-level Soul Emperor just by using the Earth Strength and Xiao Guang's ability to discover the enemy's weakness. Of course, to unleash such a powerful attack, even for Wang Kai, it wasn't without a price. To be able to kill a 1,000-year soul beast in one strike, Wang Kai had poured in a huge amount of soul force and even spiritual power into this strike. If he didn't have the power of the earth to replenish it, the everlasting blood spear would have consumed about 10% of Wang Kai's soul force. Coupled with the consumption of Emperor Shura's possession and other soul skills, Wang Kai's soul power would be depleted after a few hundred spears. However, all of this was just a hypothesis. As Wang Kai's strength continued to increase, his Chaotic Mountain and River Cauldron continued to evolve. Although the Earth Strength Soul Ring itself hadn't been upgraded, the recovery it provided to Wang Kai had greatly increased. Every second, Wang Kai could recover 0.5% of his maximum soul power from the Earth's strength. As long as he didn't go all out, Wang Kai didn't have to worry about the problem of his soul power consumption. Again, borrowing the momentum of the first spear strike, Wang Kai's second spear strike was already out. The tip of the spear flashed with a cold light as it drew a blood moon in the air, and a deep wound appeared on the belly of a 1,800 years old green howling falcon flying through the air. After weakly flapping its wings a few times, the unlucky azure howling falcon fell straight to the ground. Shura's murderous aura on the tip of Shura's dragon-slaying spear had already seeped into the azure howling falcon's body through the wound. Its internal organs were continuously being corroded by Shura's murderous aura. How could the azure howling falcon, which was already heavily injured and on the verge of death, withstand such damage? In less than 2 seconds, the remaining light of life in its eyes completely disappeared, and a purple halo floated out from its body and floated behind its back. 1,000-year azure howling falcon killed. Origin experience +2, experience +4,000, points +240. At this moment, the soul beasts in the beast tide also sensed the smell of blood in the air. These soul beasts were already a little disorderly, and after being stimulated by the smell of blood, the scene became even more chaotic. At the same time, attracted by the smell of blood, several soul beasts in the beast tide broke away from the main group and pounced towards Wang Kai. A 3,200-year horned wolf, a 3,000-year fire cloud lion, and a 2,700-year bone-devouring ant. These 3 soul beasts had around 3,000 years of cultivation, and they immediately surrounded Wang Kai. Chapter 99. Good timing. Seeing the 3,000-year soul beasts pouncing towards him, Wang Kai roared and thrust his spear at each of the 3 soul beasts. Each 3,000-year soul beast was no weaker than a normal soul ancestor in terms of fighting strength. With the 3 soul beasts attacking together, even a normal soul king would have to avoid them when combined with their powerful strength and special innate abilities. Unfortunately, Wang Kai was not a normal soul king. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 spear strikes left 3 bloody streaks in the air, and the bodies of the 3,000-year soul beasts suddenly froze. Poochie, poochie, poochie. Following 3 ear-piercing sounds of flesh being torn apart, the 3 soul beasts' throats were strangely torn apart by the spear, and they fell to the ground dead. Killed the 1,000-year soul beasts unicorn wolf, fire cloud lion, and bone-devouring ant received +18, 3,400, and 1,800 points. With 3 spear strikes, the 3,000-year soul beasts were killed by Wang Kai. With a twist of his body, Wang Kai continued to kill the other 1,000-year soul beasts. Limitless Blood Spear. Moving towards the nearest 2,000-year curly-hair illusionary claw boar, Wang Kai waved his hands, and Shura's dragon-slaying spear went straight for the root of the problem. Following the sound of the spear piercing through the air, Shura's dragon-slaying spear pierced through the thick nostrils of the curly-hair illusionary claw boar. Shura's baleful aura frantically corroded the boar, and in a few seconds, the curly-hair illusionary claw boar's brain was turned into a sticky, bloody paste. Pulling out the spear, the curly-hair illusionary claw boar's 4 legs went soft, and its 2-meter-long, 1,000-kilogram fat body could no longer support itself. With a plop sound it fell to the ground, and a purple soul ring slowly rose behind it. The sound of the system notification that he had received experience rang in his mind. At this time, Wang Kai suddenly felt a burning sensation in front of him. Spiritual Wanderer Steps. Feeling the danger, Wang Kai instinctively used his footwork to dodge, and his body flashed several meters away. At this moment, a scorching fireball hit the spot where Wang Kai was originally standing. Following a violent explosion, sparks flew and a gust of wind swept across the surroundings. Wang Kai lowered his head to take a look. After the explosion, A shallow black crater with a depth of more than 10 li and a radius of about 1 meter had appeared on the ground. In the shallow pit, the raging flames continued to burn. Good heavens! How dare you attack me? Looking up, the one who attacked Wang Kai was a 7,000-year fire cloud heavenly horse. The fireball just now was one of the innate abilities of this fire cloud heavenly horse. As a 7,000-year soul beast, the fire cloud Pegasus was a first-rate soul king. It could even fight against the weakest of low-level soul emperors. And as its innate ability, the power of the fireball just now was definitely not inferior to the all-out attack of a soul king with a 10,000-year soul ring. Even if it was Wang Kai, if he was hit head-on by that attack, it would be difficult for him to be unharmed. Fortunately, Wang Kai had the terrifying battle awareness from Emperor Shura and also grasped a peerless footwork like the spiritual wanderer step. Only then was he able to dodge the attack of the fire cloud heavenly horse. Shura's sky-splitting strike. Facing this fire cloud heavenly horse that dared to take the initiative to attack him, Wang Kai was naturally not prepared to forgive it easily. At the same time, as a 7,000-year soul beast, the experience and points obtained from killing the fire cloud heavenly horse were much more abundant than that of ordinary 1,000-year soul beasts. The third black soul ring behind him flashed. Wang Kai clasped his hands above his head and slowly swung them down. Countless scarlet blood blades flew out from Wang Kai's hands. They cut through space and shot towards the fire cloud heavenly horse in the distance, leaving behind strange blood shadows in the air. At the same time, Wang Kai tapped his feet on the ground again and charged towards the fire cloud heavenly horse in the distance. Seeing the countless blood blades shooting towards it, the fire cloud heavenly horse suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a flaming barrier. The scarlet blood blades collided with the flaming barrier and exploded into clouds of blood. At the same time, the flaming barrier in front of the fire cloud heavenly horse quickly became thin and dim. A few seconds later, the flaming barrier shattered and the remaining Shura's sky-splitting blades struck the surface of the fire cloud heavenly horse's body. Some were blocked by the thick blood energy around its body, while some left bloody marks on the weak parts of its body. After letting out a sorrowful cry, the fire cloud heavenly horse suddenly flapped its wings and soared into the sky, wanting to break through the air and escape. Just as the fire cloud heavenly horse was about to escape, Wang Kai had already arrived near it. Shura's instant hell shadow-killing stab. The fifth black soul ring behind him flashed and Wang Kai's body instantly disappeared. At the same time, streaks of black shadow energy transformed into black tentacles that tightly wrapped around the fire cloud heavenly horse's body, preventing it from escaping. Right at this moment, Wang Kai's figure appeared beside the fire cloud heavenly horse once again. With a wave of his right hand, a black Shura's thorn shot out and pierced through the fire cloud heavenly horse's body. The Shura's thorn didn't seem thick, but the moment it entered the fire cloud heavenly horse's body, it left a bloody hole that was about the size of a tennis ball. The fire cloud heavenly horse crazily activated the blood energy in its body, but it realized in despair that it couldn't stop the Shura's thorn from penetrating its body. After entering the fire cloud heavenly horse's body, the Shura's thorn shot out from the other side in less than a second, leaving behind a huge round hole that was about a meter long. Countless Shura's baleful aura spread through the wound. Feeling the intense pain in its body, the fire cloud heavenly horse let out a mournful howl once again. Its legs went limp and it was about to fall to the ground. Before he had advanced to Soul King, Wang Kai had barely managed to kill the large-clawed mountain tiger in the angel's secret realm with his dual martial souls. However, after a year of battle and tempering, a 7,000-year soul beast was just a walking experience for Wang Kai. Noisy. Become my resource for advancing. Limitless Blood Fiend Spear Technique. Although he had used other soul skills, the spear aura condensed on Wang Kai's body didn't break. Seeing that the fire cloud heavenly horse had almost lost its ability to resist, Wang Kai continued to use this self-created soul skill. Poochie! A spear shot out, followed by a light flick, and the fire cloud heavenly horse's skull was sent flying by Wang Kai. Its most fragile head was injured, and the fire cloud heavenly horse lost consciousness due to the intense pain, falling to the ground. With another shot, the blood-red Shura's Murua spear directly pierced through the fire cloud heavenly horse's white brain. With a light twist, it suddenly pulled out. Killed 1,000-year soul beast, fire cloud heavenly horse, origin experience plus 28, experience plus 4,100, origin points plus 2,840. Shaking off the sticky white brain on the tip of his spear, Wang Kai stomped his feet and charged towards the next 1,000-year soul beast. Chapter 100. Limitless Blood Fiend Spear Art. After killing the fire cloud heavenly horse, Wang Kai turned around and arrived in front of a 4,000-year long-necked mantis. Following that, he pierced through the sun with his spear. Seeing Wang Kai charging over, the long-necked mantis was not to be outdone. With a flash of its sharp pincers, it brought along a fishy wind and clamped down on Wang Kai's face. Accompanied by the crisp sound of bones breaking, the long-necked mantis's pincers were instantly broken and green blood spurted out. However, the spear's momentum did not stop. Shura's dragon-killing spear continued to stab towards the long-necked mantis's chest. Compared to ordinary soul beasts, the long-necked mantis's body was covered with a thick layer of carapace, and its defense was stronger. At the same time, the power of Wang Kai's spear was reduced due to the obstruction of the long-necked mantis's pincers. With this spear, Wang Kai only scratched the surface of the long-necked mantis's carapace but was unable to kill it in one strike. Again, although it was lucky enough to escape from this spear, this did not mean that this long-necked mantis could live. With a flip of his hands, Wang Kai stabbed his spear towards the broken carapace in front of the long-necked mantis. Poochie! Accompanied by the sound of flesh tearing, Shura's dragon-killing spear directly pierced through the body of the long-necked mantis. Immediately after, Wang Kai suddenly flicked. Plop! Plop! The long-necked mantis's thin body was directly torn in half by Wang Kai's attack and fell heavily to the ground. Green blood flowed out from the corpse's wound and dyed the brown ground dark green. At the same time, a purple soul ring rose from the center of the two halves of the corpse. All of you shall become resources for my advancement. Accompanied by the notification in his sea of consciousness, Wang Kai's figure flashed again and charged towards the other 1,000-year gray-feathered ape beside him. Arriving in front of it, Wang Kai swept out with his spear, drawing a blood moon in the air. Its neck was almost sliced in half, and its spine was completely broken by this strike. The gray-feathered ape lost control of its brain, swaying and flailing its limbs instinctively, before falling heavily to the ground. 1,000-year gray-feathered ape killed. Source experience plus 1, experience plus 4,000, points plus 140. With each shot, although he only received a few or 10 experience points each time, little drops made a mickle. Very quickly, Wang Kai's experience points neared 300, and at this time, Wang Kai's limitless blood fiend spear arts spear force had finally accumulated to the 48th level. 300 experience points. Even in the angel realm, this was what Wang Kai had earned after a day of hunting soul beasts. In the beast horde, Wang Kai had achieved such a glorious result in less than a few minutes. To other soul masters, a beast tide was a calamity that would almost certainly kill them. However, to Wang Kai, this was an opportunity that could allow him to grow quickly. A hint of excitement flashed across Wang Kai's eyes as he felt the Azura Dragonslayer's spear's accumulated power reach its peak. Wang Kai moved towards the area where the 1,000-year soul beasts were the most concentrated. Taking a deep breath, he silently gathered his strength for a moment, before thrusting his spear out like a dragon. At this moment, Wang Kai's essence, energy, and spirit merged into one. Once again, he fused the strength of the 49 spear strikes into his spear. With a sweep of his spear, A blood-colored spear light condensed from the 49 spear strikes shot out from the tip of Shura's dragon-slaying spear. It swept through the soul beasts for close to 100 meters, leaving behind streaks of blood-colored fiendish aura that slowly dissipated in the air. In the path of the blood-colored spear light, countless soul beasts were instantly torn apart, turning into pieces that fell to the ground. Blood flowed like a river. Countless white, yellow, and purple soul rings slowly rose from the corpses on the ground. Under the night sky, they were exceptionally eye-catching and beautiful. Not only were the 10-year and 100-year soul beasts killed by Wang Kai's spear, even the 1,000-year soul beasts were killed. Only a few 1,000-year soul beasts that were near the edge of the spear managed to escape with their lives from Wang Kai's attack with their strength and luck. You've killed a group of soul beasts. Obtained 121 origin experience, 230,000 experience, 115 origin experience, 236 origin experience, 35,100 points. With his spear by his side, Wang Kai nodded in satisfaction. After that, he adjusted his direction and charged towards another area where soul beasts were more concentrated. Limitless Blood Fiend Spear Art. Rushing to the side of a 2,000-year moonlight mastiff, Wang Kai mercilessly stabbed out with his spear. Although the accumulated spear aura had been swept away, under Wang Kai's full-strength attack, this moonlight mastiff was unable to resist at all. It immediately fell to the ground and died. Spear after spear, Wang Kai's accumulated spear aura had once again reached its peak. Limitless Blood Fiend Spear Art. Changing his direction once again, the blood-colored spear light dyed the night sky blood red. The soul beasts along the spear light's path were all strangled to near extinction under this spear. With this attack, Wang Kai once again obtained more than 200 origin experience points. At the same time, his points also increased by tens of thousands. Excellent! As expected, for Shura, for a conqueror, killing is the best way to grow. In just half an hour, the experience I've obtained has already exceeded what I've obtained in 5 days of cultivation. Continue. Turning the spearhead, Wang Kai turned around and charged into the group of soul beasts once again. One spear ended the life of a 1,000-year watermark otter. At this moment, Wang Kai suddenly heard a rustling sound. Listening carefully, it sounded like someone changing clothes, but also like the sound of leaves rubbing against each other. Following the sound, a faint sense of danger shrouded Wang Kai's heart. Danger! Instinctively, Wang Kai's fifth soul ring flashed behind him. Shura's instant prison shadow stab. His figure disappeared from his original position. However, this time, Wang Kai's soul skill was not for attacking, but for dodging. Spider web. A huge spider web with a radius of 5 meters. A figure appeared in the distance. Wang Kai looked at the place where he was standing with lingering fear. That place was already covered by a huge milky white spider web. Surrounded by the spider web, several soul beasts fainted the moment their bodies touched the spider web, losing the ability to resist. Looking up, in front of Wang Kai was a huge black spider. Its body was close to 3 meters in diameter, and this strange spider had 8 legs that were close to 5 meters long. Its entire body was covered by a layer of shiny black carapace. Every step it took forward, the tip of its slender feet would silently dig into the ground. It was enough to see how sharp it was. The spider web just now was the masterpiece of this huge spider. Before he used his appraisal eye to observe, a name involuntarily jumped out in Wang Kai's heart: Arachnid. Chapter 101. Looking at the spider's lower abdomen, there were a few pale white patterns that formed a stark contrast with the spider's black body. Moreover, the arrangement of these white lines was not disorderly. On the contrary, they formed the shape of a ferocious and ugly human face in a rather orderly manner. On both sides of this face, there were 4 pairs of basketball-sized eyes that flickered with a faint purple light. Upon closer inspection, These 8 eyes were different from human eyes. They weren't a single entity, but were made up of countless pearl-sized compound eyes. They were exceptionally crude and sinister. Seeing this terrifying face, Wang Kai was certain of the spider's identity. Yes, this was the arachnid, the nightmare of small soul beasts, an existence that devoured life, the target of all soul beasts' hatred, a terrifying and evil slaughterer. Even among soul beasts, the arachnid clan was one of the strongest and most savage existences. Apart from the Titan giant ape, the sky azure bull python, and a few other soul beasts, the arachnid's fighting strength was definitely one of the best among soul beasts. It had a sturdy carapace, incomparably fast speed, and 8 legs that had extremely strong penetrative power and were laced with poison. Whether it was the arachnid's defense, agility, or attack power, there wasn't the slightest flaw to be found. At the same time, it also had a terrifying innate skill: instant spider web. Yes, instant spider web. Normal spiders' webs were slowly formed by spinning silk, but the arachnid was different. Its spider web could be directly spat out. Not only could the arachnid's spider web be instantly cast, the area it covered was also 10 times the size of the arachnid's body. It was almost impossible to dodge. Even for Wang Kai, if not for the Shura's instant hell shadow stab, soul skill that could merge with space, he wouldn't have been able to dodge the arachnid's spider web in time with just the wave treading steps. Furthermore, the arachnid's spider web was not only extremely sticky and incomparably tough, it was also laced with a powerful neurotoxin. Even soul beasts with similar cultivations to it would fall into a temporary coma if they were caught in the web. Even if the soul beasts weren't knocked unconscious, they would still need a long time to break free from such a tough web. This was enough time for arachnid to kill its prey. Of course, once he was hit by arachnid's spider web, Wang Kai would have to spend a lot of effort to escape. However, Wang Kai was not worried about the spider web or arachnid's poison. Shura, as one of the most powerful creatures in the universe, their bodies could be said to have been tempered thousands of times, making them impervious to all poisons. Apart from the decaying power produced when a universe was dying, the source of all poisons in the star boundary, and a few other deadly poisons, the Shura clan was not afraid of any poison. As the possessor of Emperor Shura's martial soul, Wang Kai's body had automatically inherited some of Shura's characteristics. Although he could not be truly impervious to all poisons like Shura, at least most poisons on the Doloa continent could not have any substantial effect on Wang Kai. This was also why Wang Kai dared to come to the Icefire Yin-Yang Well to seek opportunities, even though he knew that Dugu Bo was guarding it. Of course, if he were to face a titled Doloa head-on, Wang Kai would not have any chance of escaping alive. Even Dugu Bo's strongest attack, poison, was completely countered by Wang Kai's physique. With just his frightening soul power, Dugu Bo could kill him. However, Wang Kai did not need to fight Dugu Bo. What Wang Kai had to do was to pass Dugu Bo's test and gain his trust. After that, he would trick him into eating the star anise mysterious ice grass and the blazing delicate apricot. These 2 herbs could neutralize the poison in Dugu Bo's body. However, at the same time, they would dissipate the power that he had painstakingly cultivated for his entire life. When that happened, he could kill Dugu Bo and cut off one of Tang San's arms. As for if Dugu Bo wanted to consume the pill that he had cultivated, Wang Kai did not have to worry at all. Although Wang Kai would definitely die if the pill that contained half of Dugu Bo's power exploded in his body, as long as he teleported the pill into the small plane before Dugu Bo discovered the problem, the power of the plane would prevent Dugu Bo from detonating the pill. Wealth came from danger. Although he might encounter a certain amount of risk, once he succeeded, the rewards Wang Kai would obtain would also be incomparably generous. Then, let me see how strong this arachnid is. At this moment, Wang Kai revealed a serious look on his face for the first time as he looked at the enormous arachnid in front of him. To an arachnid, their fighting strength far exceeded that of ordinary soul beasts. If an ordinary soul beast with around 10,000 years of cultivation was comparable to a high-tier soul emperor, then an arachnid with the same cultivation would be comparable to a soul sage with his martial soul true body. Although one of the arachnid's innate abilities, poisoning Wang Kai, was ineffective, if this arachnid's cultivation reached 20,000 years, it would be able to crush Wang Kai with its immense physical strength and blood. However, if this arachnid's cultivation was below 15,000 years, then Wang Kai would be able to put up a fight. Just as Wang Kai was thinking, the eye of detection returned the arachnid's information, forming a transparent table in Wang Kai's mind. Soul Beast Name: Arachnid Soul Beast Age: 1,140 years. Soul Beast Vitality: 65%, slightly injured. Soul Beast Description: Man-faced demon spider, the king of spider-type soul beasts. A powerful soul beast with impeccable attack, defense, and agility. Innate abilities: poison, instant spider web. Owner: please be careful. It has less than 12,000 years of cultivation? And it's still in a slightly injured state? After carefully sizing up the arachnid in front of him again, Wang Kai discovered that there were a few cracks on its hard shell below its abdomen. However, Wang Kai's attention was completely attracted by the arachnid's strange human face, so he didn't notice its injuries. In addition, its 8 long legs had different degrees of wear and tear. At this moment, the arachnid realized that its attack had missed, but it didn't shoot out another spider web. Although it had reached 10,000 years of cultivation, it could only use its instant spider web 5 times a day. On the contrary, its 8 long legs kicked off, and with a whoosh, it passed through the forest and pounced towards Wang Kai. It wanted to engage in close combat with Wang Kai. "Humph, you still dare to attack me when you're injured. Be obedient and become my food for evolution." At this moment, Wang Kai's fighting spirit was ignited. He shouted angrily, grabbed Shura's dragon-slaying spear, and leapt towards the arachnid. Chapter 102: Gravitational Domain. As he leapt out, a second red halo lit up behind Wang Kai as he activated this powerful domain-type skill. Soul power surged as the chaotic cauldron of mountains and rivers appeared above Wang Kai's head. At the same time, an invisible domain covered the area around Wang Kai. Under the effect of the gravitational domain, Wang Kai's speed increased by 20%. On the other side, Arachnid's speed decreased by a few percent as it was restrained by the gravitational domain. The human and spider clashed in the air. Arachnid raised its 2 front legs and slashed down at Wang Kai's head. The arachnid's front legs shone with a strange light. The sharpness of its front legs was no less than a well-tempered blade. Coupled with the frightening strength of the man-faced demon spider, even a 1-meter thick rock could be easily split in half by a single kick. Open! Faced with Arachnid's fatal attack, Wang Kai roared as he gathered all the strength in his body and swung Shura's Dragonslayer's spear forward. At the same time, Wang Kai controlled the gravitational domain to increase the gravity on him to the maximum. He also exerted a strong repulsive force on Arachnid. Following the sound of metal colliding, sparks flew in all directions. Instantly, Wang Kai was sent flying. He took 3 steps back before he could stabilize himself, leaving 3 ankle-deep craters in the ground. Wang Kai's hands were numb from this attack. His internal organs were shaken, and there was a sweet taste in his throat. Of course, Arachnid didn't have it easy either. It was sent flying by Wang Kai's gravitational domain and landed on the ground. Its 4 legs were in the air, and thick cracks appeared on the ground. What great strength! No wonder it's a top-tier soul beast. Wang Kai couldn't help but praise Arachnid in his heart as he felt its strength. Although he had the gravitational domain, Wang Kai didn't have the upper hand in terms of strength against Arachnid. Although he had killed several 10,000-year soul beasts in the angel realm, this Arachnid was much stronger than any 10,000-year soul beast that Wang Kai had ever defeated. Even the purple-eyed armored bear that had gone berserk was only on par with Arachnid in terms of strength. At this moment, Arachnid had already flipped over. Its 8 large eyes glared fiercely at Wang Kai. Evidently, Wang Kai's attack had angered it. Boundless waves of soul power gathered in Arachnid's body. A layer of purple light spread from its body, revealing an extremely dangerous aura. Streaks of purple aura spread out from Arachnid's body. All the trees within a 5-meter radius of Arachnid started to melt, and quickly turned into balls of green liquid. It wasn't just the trees. Even the soil beneath Arachnid's feet was being corroded by this purple aura. What strong corrosiveness! Wang Kai couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw the changes around Arachnid. Even a soul king would be melted into a ball of thick liquid if they were hit by this corrosive liquid. Even if it was injured, Arachnid's fighting strength was definitely comparable to a soul sage. After it finished accumulating power, the man-faced demon spider suddenly opened its bloody mouth. Suddenly, a ball of dense purple light condensed in its mouth. Then, a purple ball of corrosive light crossed the space and shot in Wang Kai's direction, leaving a thick stench in the air. Mysterious yellow protection. His first soul ring flashed behind him, and the chaotic mountain and river cauldron above Wang Kai's head trembled slightly. A brownish yellow, incomparably thick mysterious yellow aura floated out of the chaotic mountain and river cauldron and formed a thick layer of mysterious yellow barrier in front of Wang Kai. The purple ball of corrosive light directly hit the mysterious yellow barrier, and immediately burst open. Instantly, the mysterious yellow barrier was enveloped by a thick layer of purple corrosive venom, and it quickly blurred. A few seconds later, the mysterious yellow barrier exhausted its last bit of energy and turned into yellow earth particles that dissipated into the air. With the power of this attack, Arachnid actually broke through the mysterious yellow barrier that Wang Kai was so proud of. Of course, it was not easy to condense such a powerful attack, even for this 10,000-year Arachnid. Just as it was recovering its energy, Wang Kai moved. The soul power in his entire body surged crazily. In the next moment, 3 red and 2 black soul rings behind Wang Kai lit up at the same time. 3,000 heaven-burning flames. Mountain and river destruction. Shura's sky-splitting strike. Mysterious yellow aura. Shura's blood claw. Limitless blood fiend spear technique. Multitasking, Wang Kai used almost all of his powerful soul skills at once. In the next moment, the power of mysterious yellow once again surged out from the chaotic mountain and river cauldron and floated in the air, emitting a heavy aura. Immediately, after being suppressed by the gravity domain, Arachnid's speed decreased by another 20%. A wisp of purplish-black 3,000 heaven-burning flames ignited from the chaotic mountain and river cauldron and condensed into a beautiful and dangerous flame flower that burned straight towards Arachnid's body in the distance. The shadow of the chaotic mountain and river cauldron rose high above Arachnid's head and immediately fell down with the terrifying power of the Nirvana mountain and river. At the same time, Wang Kai once again became one with his spear and activated the Shura's dragon killing spear to stab towards Arachnid. Facing the 6 attacks that were exploding towards it, Arachnid had no intention of dodging. On the contrary, it continued to push off with its 8 legs and shot towards Wang Kai. The scarlet blood blades from the Shura's sky-splitting strike struck Arachnid's outer shell and left shallow cuts on its hard shell. The shadow of the chaotic mountain and river cauldron descended from the sky and smashed heavily onto Arachnid's back, creating a dent that was tens of centimeters deep on its shell, and purple juice kept flowing out. The 3,000 heaven-burning flames enveloped Arachnid's 8 sharp front legs and kept burning, emitting a strange burnt smell. Although it was injured by Wang Kai's soul skills, Arachnid's speed did not decrease at all. When it arrived in front of Wang Kai, Arachnid raised its 4 front legs high and slashed down fiercely. This time, its slashing speed was even faster, and its long legs were covered in corrosive purple light. In addition to the paralyzing poison in its body, if it hit, Wang Kai would immediately be in danger even if he had a constitution that made him immune to poison. Seeing this, Wang Kai quickly changed his strategy. The Shura's dragon-killing spear that he was about to stab out was quickly placed in front of his chest to block Arachnid's slash. Following a violent collision, Wang Kai only felt a huge force coming from Shura's dragon-killing spear. Following this, Wang Kai's body flew backwards once again. At this moment, Wang Kai, who was in midair, suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. He looked into the distance and saw the ferocious face on Arachnid's stomach open its mouth again. A white spiderweb shot towards Wang Kai, who was unable to move in the air. Chapter 103. Shura's Instantaneous Hell Shadow Stab. A devilish smile appeared on Wang Kai's face as his fifth soul ring suddenly lit up. His figure suddenly disappeared from where he was, and when he reappeared, Wang Kai was already 10 meters away. At the same time, Arachnid's spider web exploded in the air, and its surface area suddenly increased by several times. If not for the fact that Wang Kai had released his soul skill in time, he would have become Arachnid's prey. At this moment, the man-faced demonic spider had finished accumulating power, and it opened its ferocious mouth once again. Instantly, a thick purple light wave condensed in front of its mouth. After that, it pierced through the forest and shot towards Wang Kai. Compared to the purple ball of light that Arachnid had shot out before, the corrosive purple light wave that Arachnid had shot out this time was evidently more powerful. Wang Kai's figure flashed, and he activated his wave treading steps as he frantically shot to the side. The purple light beam swept past Wang Kai's body, and all the branches and leaves in its path were corroded into a ball of sticky liquid that exuded a strong stench. The purple light beam hit the ground, and even the ground was being corroded by the terrifying power of the purple light beam. At this moment, Arachnid's head moved slightly when it saw that the corrosive purple light beam didn't hit Wang Kai. The purple light beam continued to shoot out from its mouth, and it suddenly changed direction in the air, and continued to chase after Wang Kai. Wang Kai tapped his feet lightly on a nearby tree, and he activated his wave treading steps again. He suddenly changed his angle in the air, and avoided Arachnid's corrosive light wave. At the same time, Wang Kai swung his right arm, and Shura's dragon-slaying spear left his hand. It traversed tens of meters, and was aimed at Arachnid's open mouth. For the man-faced demon spiders, whose bodies were covered in thick carapaces, their only weaknesses were their exposed eyes and mouth. Now that Arachnid dared to open its mouth in front of Wang Kai, he naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Following a low dragon's roar, Shura's dragon-slaying spear pierced through the air, and viciously shot towards Arachnid's open mouth. Arachnid didn't panic at all when it saw Shura's dragon-slaying spear flying towards it. It shook its head slightly, and the corrosive purple light wave changed direction in the air, and went straight for Shura's dragon-slaying spear. Z. Following an ear-piercing sound of metal corrosion, the spear's dragon-slaying spear's body was rapidly corroded by the corrosive light wave. At this moment, Wang's dragon-slaying spear, and the dragon-slaying spear's spear explode. Suddenly, Shura's dragon-slaying spear exploded very close to Arachnid's mouth, and turned into a dense fog of Shura's murderous aura. At the same time, the corrosive light wave in Arachnid's mouth was also affected by Shura's dragon-slaying spear's explosion, and the corrosive purple liquid splattered all over the ground. In the next moment, the grass within a few meters of Arachnid's body instantly turned yellow, and then turned into thick water. The fog of blood dissipated, and Arachnid's eyes were already blinded by Shura's murderous aura after the explosion of Shura's dragon-slaying spear. Hiss! A shrill and ear-piercing shriek rang through the night sky. At this moment, Wang Kai was finally able to catch his breath. After unleashing so many soul skills in succession, he had expended close to a quarter of his soul power. As he frantically absorbed the power of the earth to recover his soul power, Wang Kai used his scouting eye again and looked at Arachnid in the distance. Soul Beast name, Arachnid Soul Beast year, 1140 is Soul Beast life force, 35%, heavily injured, excellent. Wang Kai nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the data from the scouting eye. Although he had expended a lot of soul power, Wang Kai's attack had also depleted close to 30% of Arachnid's life force. This was undoubtedly very beneficial to Wang Kai. Wang Kai's soul power was quickly replenished by the power of the earth, but Arachnid's life force couldn't be replenished so easily unless it ate and rested a lot. Naturally, Wang Kai wouldn't give it any chance to breathe. 3,000 heaven-burning flames. Mountain River Obliteration. Shura's Sky-Splitting Strike. Xian Wangqi Suppress. Shura's Blood Claw. Shura's Dragon Killing Spear. Limitless Blood Fiend Spear. Using the same method, Wang Kai crazily circulated his soul power, and the 3 black and 3 red soul rings behind him suddenly lit up. He was multitasking, and in the next moment, 6 soul skills formed a torrent of energy that shot towards Arachnid in the distance. Countless scarlet blood blades, 2 Shura's blood claws that were emitting a dense amount of Shura's fiend aura, and a purplish-black flame flower formed by the 3,000 heaven-burning flames. 6 soul skills hit Arachnid's body almost at the same time. Hiss! Following Arachnid's miserable shriek, countless soul skills exploded on the surface of Arachnid's body. With her life force dropping so low, Arachnid's blood energy had also decreased greatly. Without the protection of her blood energy, Wang Kai's soul skills undoubtedly caused considerable damage to Arachnid. Under Wang Kai's soul skills, cracks and dents were left on Arachnid's hard outer shell. Some of the weaker parts even directly exploded, revealing the brownish-red flesh inside. The blood-red Shura's fiend aura crazily surged into Arachnid's body from the broken shell, continuously destroying the tissues and nerves inside. At the same time, without the protection of her blood energy, the 3,000 heaven-burning flames quickly spread on Arachnid's body, charring piece after piece of flesh black. Her life force was constantly draining away, but Arachnid still did not lose the ability to move. As the saying goes, a centipede dies but never falls down. Although Arachnid did not have a centipede, her life force was still extremely tenacious. However, at this moment, Shura's fiend aura and the 3,000 heaven-burning flames had already corroded the nerves in her body. Although her brain was constantly issuing orders to attack, Arachnid's body was only rolling around aimlessly. At this moment, streams of purple and blue venom were constantly gushing out from her broken shell. In an instant, the weak plants around Arachnid were instantly corroded. As the man-faced demon spider rolled left and right, even the thick trees that were hit by its body were immediately smashed to pieces. Within a radius of 10 square meters, it was a complete mess. There was not a single plant that was still intact. Seeing that Arachnid was so heavily injured, Wang Kai did not chase after her. Firstly, Wang Kai was not sure if this Arachnid, who was covered in venom, had any hidden methods like self-detonation. Once he got close, it would only increase the danger. Secondly, after releasing 2 rounds of soul skills, Wang Kai's soul power had already been depleted by more than 40%. At the same time, his physical strength and spiritual power were also greatly depleted. Compared to killing this dying Arachnid, recovering his soul power was the most important choice. While staring at the struggling Arachnid in the distance, Wang Kai frantically absorbed the power of the earth to recover his soul power, physical strength and spiritual power. Chapter 104. The rich power of the earth continued to enter his body, and under the effect of his soul skills, it was continuously converted into pure soul power and physical strength. As one of the few large soul beast forests on the Dolua continent, the power of the earth here was abnormally rich, and the speed at which it was converted into soul power was exceptionally fast. The soul power and physical strength in his body continued to rise, and in less than 2 minutes, Wang Kai had already returned to his optimal state. Concentrating his spiritual power on the distant arachnid, Wang Kai once again used his eye of detection to scan this enormous savage creature. Seeing the results of the eye of detection, Wang Kai nodded slightly. After experiencing Wang Kai's second round of bombardment, this savage 10,000-year arachnid's life force had plummeted once again. It only had less than 10% of its life force left, and had entered a state of near death. Under the continuous burning of the 3,000 heavens burning flames, its body was already emitting a burnt smell. If one were to pass through the arachnid's shell and enter the savage beast's body, this 2-meter-tall giant creature would have already turned into a bloody paste. Even though its body was poisoned, under the corrosion of Shura's baleful aura, the arachnid had no chance of resisting. A thick purplish-black liquid continuously flowed out of the wounds on the surface of the arachnid's body. Not a single plant could be seen within a few meters of its body, and even the earth had turned into a pool of purplish mucus, with bubbles constantly rolling about. As time passed, the arachnid's body's arc of movement became smaller and smaller. If one were to observe carefully, the bluish-purple luster on the surface of the arachnid's shell was also becoming dimmer and dimmer, and it was clear that it was no longer alive. However, at this moment, Wang Kai didn't dare to rashly approach the arachnid. Even though it was heavily injured, the arachnid still had the ability to instantly release spiderweb. And it was clear that the closer he was to the man-faced demon spider, the higher the probability of its instant web hitting him. This arachnid was already on the verge of death. Wang Kai did not want to be ambushed at the last moment and fail miserably. After all, even if her eyes were injured, arachnid could still lock onto the enemy's position through smell. However, although he couldn't get close, it didn't mean that Wang Kai didn't have the means to kill arachnid. Shura's dragon-killing spear. Wang Kai activated the soul power in his veins, and a third black ring of light suddenly lit up behind him. He extended his right hand, and the blood-red Shura's baleful aura converged to form a mighty and domineering blood-red Shura's dragon-slaying spear. Unlike a weapon formed from a physical martial soul, the Shura's dragon-slaying spear was formed from a soul skill. Even if it was damaged, it wouldn't affect Wang Kai at all. As a result, the Shura's dragon-slaying spear was as good as new even though it was struck directly by the arachnid's corrosive light waves. Die! Wang Kai crazily gathered his strength as he swung his right hand behind his back. After that, he gathered all the strength in his body and flung the Shura's dragon-slaying spear towards one of the arachnid's spider eyes. Accompanied by a sonic boom, the blood-red Shura's dragon-slaying spear pierced through the air and shot towards the arachnid's face with unparalleled power. With Wang Kai's full strength, the Shura's dragon-slaying spear was so fast that it formed an invisible cyclone around the spear's body. All the leaves and small branches within a few meters of the spear were crushed into pieces. Poochie! Accompanied by a dull sound, the Shura's dragon-slaying spear pierced through the arachnid's eyeball, which was the weakest part of the arachnid's body. The tip of the spear pierced into the arachnid's brain, and only half of the spear's body was still visible. Even if the arachnid's body was fully recovered and protected by its blood energy, its eyes couldn't possibly withstand such a powerful attack. Furthermore, the arachnid in front of Wang Kai was on the brink of death. Its blood energy was so weak that it couldn't even dodge. It could only watch in despair as the tip of Shura's dragon-slaying spear grew larger and larger in its field of vision. Hiss! The arachnid howled in pain again after being severely injured. However, compared to the previous 2 howls, the arachnid's howls were undoubtedly a lot softer this time. There was even a hint of pleading in its voice. Its life energy was so weak that it didn't even have the strength to scream. Explode! Faced with such a dangerous soul beast, Wang Kai naturally wouldn't show any mercy. He circulated his soul power slightly, and Shura's dragon-slaying spear, which had pierced through the arachnid's eyeball, immediately exploded. The blood-colored Shura's murderous aura spread wildly in all directions along with the explosion. In an instant, the dense Shura's murderous aura invaded the arachnid's brain. Faced with such an attack, even a 10,000-year soul beast at its peak would find it hard to survive. Furthermore, the arachnid was already on the brink of death. Immediately, the last trace of life in the arachnid's eyes disappeared. Its 8 sharp limbs swayed slightly and finally lost control. They softly opened up to form a large me character. You've killed the 10,000-year arachnid. You've received plus 200 origin experience, plus 9901 experience, plus 2 origin points, plus 99 origin points. At this moment, the system's notification sounded in Wang Kai's mind. At the same time, purplish-black light continuously dissipated from the arachnid's body and gathered above its body. The purplish-black light rapidly collided and condensed in the air. In less than 10 seconds, a faint black soul ring formed in the air and slowly floated above the arachnid's corpse. I've finally killed it. Looking at the arachnid's corpse in front of him, Wang Kai slowly let out a breath of turbid air. The corner of his mouth revealed a relaxed smile. At this moment, a look of bewilderment flashed across Wang Kai's face. Oh, something's not right. The system clearly indicated that it was killed. This arachnid still has traces of life left? The corner of his eye wrinkled slightly. Wang Kai slightly channeled his soul power, and Shura's Dragonslayer's spear appeared in his right hand once more. Following this, Wang Kai was a little wary as he slowly walked over to the arachnid's side. Is it here? Looking at the place where the arachnid's stomach was slightly bulging, Wang Kai could sense that the faint traces of life were coming from there. Wang Kai waved his right hand and Shura's Dragonslayer's spear slashed through the air, creating a cold blood moon. The outer shell of the arachnid's body had already been shattered. Without the protection of its blood energy, it couldn't withstand the sharpness of Shura's Dragonslayer's spear. Following the sound of flesh being torn apart, Shura's Dragonslayer's spear cut through the remains of the arachnid's corpse. Following this, a football-sized spider egg with jade-green runes engraved on its shell fell to the ground with a plop. Chapter 105. Spider Egg. Wang Kai furrowed his brow as he looked at the arachnid egg in front of him. Forget it. I'll help you to the end. Since I've killed your mother, I'll send you on your way too. Wang Kai naturally had no interest in hatching an ugly and poisonous arachnid egg. Shura's dragon-slaying spear pierced the spider egg with a light tap of his right hand. He channeled a bit of his soul power, and a wisp of Azura chi flowed along the tip of the Azura dragon-slaying spear and into the spider egg. Eh? It's not dead? Wang Kai exclaimed after waiting for a few seconds. The life force in the arachnid egg didn't decrease. Instead, it grew stronger. Interesting. Wang Kai nodded with interest as he looked at the arachnid egg in front of him. Wang Kai's Shura's murderous aura was enough to corrode an adult arachnid egg's body. Even a sliver of Shura's murderous aura was enough to exterminate the young life inside an arachnid egg that had no blood energy to protect it. Again, a trace of curiosity appeared in Wang Kai's heart. He didn't directly pierce through the spider egg with his spear. Instead, he circulated his soul force and poured a trace of Azura's fiendish aura into the egg. The life force in the egg grew stronger after this new sliver of Shura's murderous aura entered the egg. It even seemed to desire Shura's murderous aura. Interesting. Wang Kai's eyes flashed as he activated his soul force again and injected several slivers of Shura's murderous aura into the egg. Following the infusion of Shura's baleful aura, the spider egg in front of Wang Kai began to glow with a faint red light. The dark green runes on the outer shell of the spider egg also began to fade, turning into a dark red color. At the same time, the outer shell of the spider egg began to slowly expand. Seeing the changes in the spider egg, Wang Kai became even more curious. Following the infusion of Shura's baleful aura, the life aura of the spider egg before Wang Kai's eyes became increasingly exuberant. At the same time, the dark green runes on the outer shell of the spider egg, had completely turned into the dark red color of Shura's baleful aura. Moreover, it flickered with a rather beautiful luster. At this time, the arachnid egg had nearly doubled in size. Carefully sensing the condition of the spider egg, Wang Kai felt that the weak consciousness within the spider egg seemed to be getting closer and closer to him. Just as Wang Kai was about to increase the power of Shura's baleful aura, a slight resistance came from the spider egg. "Are you full? To be able to withstand so much of Shura's baleful aura, this spider egg is truly extraordinary. It looks like we're fated to meet. Forget it, let me see what kind of existence you can grow into after absorbing my Shura's baleful aura." Facing this arachnid egg that had absorbed Shura's baleful aura, Wang Kai didn't plan on destroying it. With a thought, Wang Kai stopped the infusion of Shura's baleful aura and withdrew Shura's Dragonslayer spear. Following the withdrawal of the spear, a faint red light flashed on the spider egg. The crack caused by Shura's Dragonslayer's spear quickly recovered. A streak of soul force picked up the spider egg on the ground. With a thought, Wang Kai entered the small plane. After entering the small plane, Wang Kai dug a large hole near the plane furnace and buried the spider egg in it. Soon after, he filled up the hole again. Shura's Dragonslayer's spear drew a large cross on the hatching area of the spider egg as a mark. Wang Kai left the small plane again. Coming to Arachnid's side, he waved his spear and chopped off the 8 sharp legs of the arachnid egg and stored it in the small plane. Wang Kai once again turned into a black shadow and killed his way into the beast tide. With a flick of his spear and a tear of his claws, 1,000-year soul beast after another fell under Wang Kai's hands. Wang Kai's points continued to rise rapidly. 3 hours later. Has the beast tide finally retreated? Looking at the decreasing number of soul beasts around him, Wang Kai sighed with slight disappointment. Within 3 hours, Wang Kai had obtained almost 5,000 experience points, and his points had increased from 4,500,000 to 5 million. It could be said that tonight's slaughter was equivalent to half a month of Wang Kai's cultivation. As for the special arachnid egg that absorbed Shura's killing intent, it was an even more unexpected gain. The only thing that Wang Kai felt a little regretful was that these soul beasts didn't drop any soul bones. Of course, Wang Kai wasn't too surprised by this. After all, soul bones weren't cabbages. Although the probability of a 60,000-year soul beast dropping a soul bone was close to 10%, the lower the age of the soul beast, the lower the probability of dropping a soul bone. Generally speaking, for a 10,000-year soul beast, the probability of dropping a soul bone was only 1 in a few hundred. For the 1,000-year soul beasts that Wang Kai mainly killed today, he might need to kill hundreds of thousands or even millions of them to have a chance of obtaining a soul bone. Today, Wang Kai killed a total of less than 1,000 soul beasts, so it was very normal that he didn't drop any soul bones. "Oh right, little Guang, from the soul beasts that I killed, did you find out the reason for the soul beast tide? Are there any strong soul beasts fighting nearby?" After contacting Emperor Shura's possession and dispersing the Emperor Shura's armor on his body, Wang Kai secretly asked in his heart. The soul beast tide wouldn't happen for no reason. Generally speaking, unless there was a heaven and earth treasure in some place, or there was a strong soul beast soul master fighting, the soul beasts wouldn't leave their habitat in large numbers. If the reason for this beast tide was the latter, Wang Kai didn't dare to rashly go. Once he entered the battlefield of strong soul beasts, they definitely wouldn't mind killing him with a slap. "Master, from the corpses of the soul beasts that you killed, little Guang didn't detect any obvious strong soul beast aura. According to little Guang's speculations, this beast tide is a malicious attempt by the world to test and attack you. Generally speaking, a world treasure ground like the Icefire Yin-Yang Well that you mentioned would receive the world's protection and special attention. The world's will is also much stronger than other places. The infinite martial soul system has already helped Master to shield half of the world's malice. However, in a place like the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, the world's will is too strong. Even if it is shielded, it will still have a great impact on Master. Generally speaking, the world's will can't affect soul masters. However, if it's just guiding some soul beasts that don't have intelligence, it's still possible. This beast tide might be a malicious attempt by the world to attack you. The world's malice? I see. Nodding his head, Wang Kai turned his gaze to the mountain peak in the distance. Icefire Yin-Yang Well, I'm coming! The beast tide had already dispersed, and Wang Kai stared at the mountain peak in the distance. The trace of disappointment in his eyes had completely disappeared, and only an incomparable desire and excitement remained. After that, he took large strides and headed straight for the mountain peak. Chapter 106. When he reached the bottom of the mountain, Wang Kai circulated his soul power slightly, and Shura's claws grew out of his hands. After that, he used both his hands and feet to climb up the mountain path. The mountain path was very rugged, but Wang Kai was able to travel several meters with every step he took after activating his gravity domain. Furthermore, the distance between each step was very even. If one looked at it from afar, it would seem as if Wang Kai was climbing up the mountain vertically. As Wang Kai climbed, the trees on both sides of the mountain path gradually became fewer and fewer. At the same time, the temperature and density of soul power in the air continued to rise. As he carefully sniffed the air, Wang Kai could already smell an extremely faint smell of sulfur. Very quickly, Wang Kai reached the top of the mountain. The temperature here became warmer and warmer, and there was even a hint of humidity in the air. When he sensed the density of the soul power around him, Wang Kai was pleasantly surprised to discover that the density of soul power here wasn't any weaker than the angel realm. There was no doubt that the Icefire Yin-Yang Well was right in front of him. When he looked up, just as expected, milky white smoke was rising continuously less than a kilometer away from Wang Kai. With a thought, Wang Kai withdrew his Shura's claws and took large strides in the direction of the smoke. There's poison! Wang Kai wasn't even halfway there when he suddenly felt a little dizzy. He furrowed his brows and immediately thought of something. Yes, the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. As the poison Dolua's exclusive property, Dugubo had set up a powerful poison array near the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. It formed a layer of invisible and colorless toxic miasma that prevented soul beasts and other soul masters from entering this precious place where he cultivated. With the poison Dolua's ability to instantly wipe out everything within a kilometer of him, even poison-type soul beasts with over 1,000 years of cultivation would quickly die if they came into contact with the miasma within his poison array. There was no way for them to pass through, let alone normal soul masters with weaker physical constitutions. Of course, Wang Kai wasn't an ordinary soul master. Even compared to those poison-type soul beasts, Wang Kai's resistance to poison was more than 100 times stronger with his Emperor Shura martial soul. The poison that could kill a 1,000-year soul beast only made Wang Kai feel a little dizzy. Emperor Shura possess. Wang Kai circulated his soul power slightly when he sensed the poisonous miasma around him. Shura's scales completely covered his body, and layers of red and black Shura's raging flames ignited on the surface of his body. Compared to his human form, Wang Kai's resistance to poison was much higher after he used Emperor Shura's possession. Wang Kai immediately felt the poison invading his body being dispersed and eliminated by Shura's murderous aura. His mind also quickly regained its clarity. Wang Kai continued to run forward. In less than half a minute, he had already reached the end of the mountain path. The steam that he had seen earlier was surging out from here. At this moment, the poison array and the miasma in the air had already disappeared. After removing Emperor Shura's possession, Wang Kai looked down through the hot and humid fog. There was an inverted cone-shaped depression in front of him. Wang Kai was standing on the mountain peak at the edge of this depression. Yes, this is the place. Although Wang Kai couldn't see the true appearance of the ice-fire Yin Yang well through the fog, he could smell the sulfuric smell in the air. He could sense the extremely dense soul power aura in the air. If the ice-fire Yin Yang well wasn't at the bottom of this valley, where else could it be? Due to the fog and the night, the valley in front of him was pitch black and bottomless. However, Wang Kai had the gravitational domain, so he naturally wasn't afraid of this. Wang Kai came to the edge of the cliff. He circulated his soul power slightly, and the gravitational domain enveloped his body once more. After that, he took a step forward and jumped down lightly. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared into the white fog. Under the effect of the gravity domain, 90% of the gravity that Wang Kai felt was offset, and his body slowly descended to the bottom of the valley. 10 seconds later, Wang Kai successfully landed at the bottom of the valley. At this moment, the temperature and humidity in the air had increased by a large margin. The soul power in the environment was close to the standard density of 50. When he arrived at the bottom of the valley, Wang Kai hurriedly looked in the direction of the rising fog. In the center of the valley, about a few hundred meters away from him, there was a hot spring that was continuously emitting steam. The hot spring wasn't very big, but it was split into 2 parts. In the oval pool, the hot spring water was milky white, and the hot spring water was scarlet red. What was even stranger was that although these 2 hot springs were in the same pool, they were clearly separated. They didn't invade each other's space, and they were always on one side of the pool. The steam that was billowing into the air was generated from the space between the 2 hot springs. It continued to rise until it reached the entrance of the valley. "This is great." Wang Kai was extremely excited as he looked at the hot spring in front of him. His body was even trembling slightly. The ice-fire Yin Yang well was one of the 3 great treasure basins. It was a unique spring that was blessed by the heavens. There were twins in one eye, and Yin and Yang countered each other. It was a treasure land that was hard to come by in tens of millions of years. It was a place where vast amounts of spiritual energy gathered, and where vast amounts of natural treasures grew. That's right, this was the ice-fire Yin Yang well that Wang Kai had yearned for a long time. It was also the place where Tang San would be able to become a god in the future. For a treasure land like the ice-fire Yin Yang well, the soul power here was extremely dense, and the climate was also very special. Although ordinary plants couldn't grow in such a special environment, it was a hotbed for many precious natural treasures. Apart from that, the ice-fire Yin Yang well wasn't like other places with dense soul power. Not only could it provide an excellent environment for many natural treasures to grow, but it could also shorten the time it took for them to mature. If a natural treasure were to grow here for 10 years, it would accumulate medicinal effects that would be stronger than if it were to grow in other places for 100 years. Furthermore, the ice-fire Yin Yang well wasn't just able to nurture plants. It also had a very special effect on the human body. If a normal person were to approach the ice-fire Yin Yang well, their bodies would be struck by the 2 extreme types of natural energies of heaven and earth, and they would quickly explode to death. However, if one's physical constitution was sufficiently powerful and could withstand the impact of the ice and fire energies near the ice-fire Yin Yang well, then it could be said that cultivating in the ice-fire Yin Yang well would yield twice the results for half the effort. If it weren't for the fact that the poison Doloa Dugu bow had taken over this place, and that the world's consciousness gathered in the ice-fire Yin Yang well was extremely powerful, Wang Kai would have been very willing to cultivate here for a while. With that in mind, Wang Kai strode toward the ice-fire Yin Yang well. Chapter 107. Walking to the ice-fire Yin Yang well, Huiyu Hao could see snow silkworms, cinnabar lotuses, 1,000-year blood mushrooms, all sorts of rare grade 7 heaven-ranked herbs grew around the ice-fire Yin Yang well, and there were countless varieties of them. Wang Kai would have been attracted to these heaven-ranked herbs if it was any other day. However, this was the ice-fire Yin Yang well. Even though these grade 7 heaven-ranked herbs were extremely valuable, they were still lacking compared to the immortal tier herbs that grew here. If it was the classification in the true alchemy explanation, the immortal grade, spirit herbs that Tang San spoke of would at least be heaven-ranked 9th grade heavenly treasures. These immortal tier herbs were Wang Kai's main goal in the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. Taking a deep breath, Wang Kai quickly circled around the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, and observed all the natural treasures in the vicinity of the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. With just a cursory glance, Wang Kai saw countless precious heavenly materials and earthly treasures. More than 10 types of heavenly materials and earthly treasures 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 of heavenly materials, and it was a good thing that they were in the vicinity of the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. Otherwise, even the most ordinary 7th grade heaven grade natural treasures would be guarded by extremely poisonous creatures or terrifying ferocious beasts, let alone these 9th grade heaven grade immortal grade medicinal herbs. Not all of these spirit plants were beneficial to soul cultivators. On the contrary, at least half of them were poisonous. Of course, although there was no lack of poisonous spiritual herbs, there were also many beneficial spiritual herbs among these heavenly treasures. Just like the 2 pools of spring water in the Ice and Fire Yin-Yang Well, these 2 types of spiritual herbs were equally matched here. Wang Kai stopped in front of a large flower that grew on the bank where the red and white spring water intersected. The flower swayed gently along with the water mist. This was a large, pale pink flower. It didn't have any leaves, and its stem was around 80 to 90 centimeters long. The flower was extremely large, and its diameter was dozens of centimeters. There was also a pale red light barrier that was around 5 meters in radius around this flower. Upon closer inspection, the flower could be said to be extremely beautiful. Every petal looked as sparkling and translucent as a crystal. Apart from that, it had a diamond-like, pale purple stamen that gave off a refreshing fragrance. It was the bane of all poisons, the delicate fragrance and beauty. Even though it couldn't cure any poison, it could counter all poisons. It was the best antidote to poison. The fragrance and pollen of the delicate fragrance and beauty had the ability to neutralize all poisons. Within its range, no poison would be able to do anything, and its poison-suppressing area was the purple light barrier that Wang Kai saw. What a treasure! Wang Kai smiled as he walked in front of the delicate fragrance and beauty. The Tang sect was famous for their hidden weapons, and Tang San from the Tang sect had brought these extremely insidious hidden weapons to the Doloa continent. Even though Wang Kai himself had a body that was immune to all poisons, and wasn't afraid of Tang San, but for someone like Tang San, who was a transmigrator who had lived 2 lives, his methods were experienced and ruthless. If he went crazy and made a move on the people around him, this immortal herb would be the best protection for them. Taking out a jade shovel made of the highest quality white jade from the small plain, Wang Kai carefully scooped up the soil from the delicate fragrance and beauty's root. Immediately after, Wang Kai hurriedly entered the small plain and transplanted the delicate fragrance and beauty next to the plain furnace. After thinking for a while, Wang Kai's heart stirred. His hands touched the plain furnace, and then he silently said, double the soul power concentration of the small plane. The basic soul power concentration of your small plane is 2, and the soul power concentration has been raised to 1. This time, 2 million points are required to raise the soul power concentration. Do you want to raise it? Following Wang Kai's thought, a prompt appeared in his sea of consciousness. Confirm. As soon as Wang Kai's voice fell, 2 million points were immediately deducted from his account. At the same time, the plane furnace in the small plane was also shining, and more complicated and mysterious runes appeared on the surface of the plane furnace. With the appearance of one rune after another, the 4 basic energies from the astral world poured into the plane furnace more, and the soul power concentration in the small plane also became higher and higher. After a few minutes, no more new runes appeared, and the plane furnace was finally upgraded successfully. At this time, the energy pouring into the plane furnace had basically stabilized, and the soul power concentration in the small plane also slowly stopped at 4 standard soul power concentration. For a celestial item like the delicate fragrance and beauty, if it was to maintain its activity and medicinal properties, it had to be placed in a treasure land with a higher soul power concentration. Obviously, even if the soul power concentration in the small plane reached 4 times the average standard of the Dolua continent, it was still not enough to maintain the activity of the delicate fragrance and beauty. However, increasing the soul power concentration was still beneficial to the preservation of these celestial items. With a thought, he left the small plane. Wang Kai took a step forward again and came to the side of an orchid with 8 petals. It was snow-white and sparkling, exuding a delicate virgin fragrance, and had a sense of nobility. Celestial spiritual herb, the 8-petal immortal orchid. Among the many natural treasures in the Icefire Yin-Yang well, the 8-petal immortal orchid wasn't the most precious, but its medicinal properties could be said to be the most gentle and mellow. Although it was a 9th grade heaven rank, which was also a celestial top-notch natural treasure, it was very easy to absorb the 8-petal immortal orchid. Even mortals who didn't cultivate could safely absorb it. Correspondingly, it would take a very long time for its medicinal properties to be completely absorbed by the consumer, and it could even last until a soul master cultivated to rank 60 or even 70. In addition to being easy to absorb, this 8-petal immortal orchid also had the functions of consolidating one's foundation and cultivating one's origin energy, expelling impurities from a soul master's body, and so on. It was an extremely precious celestial herb. Unlike other medicinal herbs, the 8-petal immortal orchid's collection and preservation was the simplest, gold and jade packaging. As long as it was collected with gold tools and placed in jade containers, it wouldn't wither for 1,000 years, wouldn't wither for 100 generations, and wouldn't lose its medicinal properties. Although he didn't carry any gold items with him, this wasn't a problem for Wang Kai, who had the mystical system store. After spending several hundred points to exchange for a pure gold spade, and taking out a top-grade jade box from the small plane, Wang Kai focused all his attention on harvesting the 8-petal immortal orchid, and then carefully stored it in the jade box. As he continued to walk along the edge of the Icefire Yin-Yang well, Wang Kai stopped beside a huge spiritual plant that looked like a chrysanthemum. It looked no different from a chrysanthemum, but it was different from normal chrysanthemums. This spiritual plant wasn't yellow or orange in color, but a magnificent purple. Apart from that, every petal of this chrysanthemum was furry and very cute. The entire chrysanthemum was a single entity, and there wasn't any fragrance coming from it. In the center of this chrysanthemum, there were several stamens that were more than half a foot above the petals, and the tips of the stamens shone with a faint golden light. This was the celestial herb, the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum. Chapter 108. Similar to the 8-petal immortal orchid, the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum was also an immortal herb with neutral medicinal properties. Even though its medicinal properties were slightly stronger than the 8-petal immortal orchids, the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum was still an immortal herb that was easy to absorb. According to the true alchemy explanation, the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum could allow a soul master's blood essence to flow through their limbs and meridians, allowing them to cultivate an indestructible body. Evidently, the indestructible body here was a little exaggerated, but it was enough to show how powerful the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum was. The singular velvet sky chrysanthemum's medicinal properties were neutral and vast. It could help a soul master increase their blood essence, temper their body, and increase the strength of their limbs. At the same time, it could increase a soul master's soul power, break through bottlenecks, and cleanse their meridians. Of course, to Wang Kai, this stalk of immortal grass had an even more important use. In the martial soul hall, there was a titled Doluo whose martial soul was also the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum, Chrysanthemum Doluo Yu Guan. If Wang Kai could obtain this immortal herb, he would be able to recruit this titled Doluo under his wing. The Chrysanthemum Doluo was a rank 95 pinnacle Dolu. Furthermore, if he could obtain and refine this immortal grade spirit herb that was connected to his martial soul, it was very likely that he would be able to break through his bottleneck and become a rank 96 or even 97 pinnacle Dolu. Furthermore, Wang Kai knew that a soul master could only consume one immortal herb in their lifetime unless it was refined into a pill. If one didn't pay attention and forcefully consumed more than one immortal herb, the energy between the immortal herbs could conflict with each other, turning the soul master's body into a battlefield. It would be extremely harmful to the soul master. Although the immortal grass was small, the energy contained within it was extremely boundless. If a soul cultivator were to be hit by the immortal grass, it would at best injure the soul cultivator and damage their future potential. If it was serious, the soul cultivator's soul force would drop, and they might even become immortal. If the soul cultivator was even more unlucky, they might even explode and die. If one wanted to refine a grade 9 heaven rank herb like this into a pill, one had to use a vast amount of precious supplementary ingredient. During the refinement process, one had to possess spiritual power that was comparable to a titled Doluo's, as well as extremely precise and proficient pill refinement technique. Obviously, Wang Kai did not possess any of these three conditions at the moment. Although the latter two conditions wouldn't pose a problem for Wang Kai as time passed, it was undoubtedly more difficult than ascending to the heavens to gather a set of 9th-grade heaven-rank medicinal ingredients in the Doluo continent, where the soul power density was extremely low and natural treasures were extremely scarce. Moreover, Wang Kai didn't have that much time to waste. It seemed like Wang Kai couldn't digest all the natural treasures on his own. Therefore, it was undoubtedly worth it to spend a stalk of immortal grass to rope in a peak Dolu. Furthermore, Wang Kai also knew that if he could rope in Chrysanthemum Doluo, Gui Mei, who was sworn brothers with Chrysanthemum Doluo, would definitely join him. Although the two of them weren't considered the strongest among peak Doluo, Chrysanthemum Doluo and Gui Doluo were both titled Doluo, and they could unleash an extremely powerful martial soul fusion skill, the dual stasis domain. The dual stasis domain was a terrifying domain that involved the mysterious laws of time. Once it was unleashed, it could stop time for any enemy that was enveloped by this domain. Even an exceptional Doluo would find it extremely difficult to escape. Even if a stalk of a 9th-grade heaven-rank immortal grass was refined into a pill and fully absorbed, it could at most increase the soul power of a titled Doluo by 1 rank. If it wasn't refined into a pill and consumed directly, it would be very difficult to fully absorb its medicinal effects, and the effects would be even worse. Evidently, even a fool wouldn't reject using a stalk of immortal grass in exchange for 2 peak Doluo's loyalty. As a neutral natural treasure, harvesting the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum was naturally a relatively safe thing to do. There wasn't any danger involved. Of course, even though there wasn't any danger, There was still a lot of attention to be paid to harvesting an immortal grass like this. If there was any mistake, the spiritual energy and soul power within the herb could leak out, and the precious medicinal effects would be lost. Therefore, this was a job that couldn't be done carelessly. Wang Kai took out a jade shovel and carefully raked the soil around the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum. He then gently scooped up the soil around the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum and planted it beside the small plains planer furnace. After harvesting the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum, Wang Kai continued to walk along the icefire yin-yang well and arrived beside a white flower. This was a snow-white flower that was sparkling and translucent. Its surface was extremely clean, and it was as spotless as a green lotus. At the same time, it exuded an elegant and refreshing fragrance. This was an immortal grass, the Narcissus jade skin. Similar to the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum, the Narcissus jade skin had the ability to strengthen a soul cultivator's blood essence and temper their muscles and bones. At the same time, it could also significantly increase a soul master's soul power and make it easier for them to break through their bottlenecks in the future. However, compared to the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum, this Narcissus jade skin was different in its own way. Even though they were both neutral herbs, the Narcissus jade skin grew on the side of the icefire yin-yang well's extreme chill yin spring. Its medicinal properties were more yin, and it was suitable for female soul masters to consume. In contrast, the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum grew on the side of the scorching sunspring in the icefire yin-yang well, and its medicinal properties were more yang, so it was more suitable for male soul masters. After raking the soil around the Narcissus jade skin, Wang Kai carefully dug it up from the ground and planted it into the small plain. After harvesting these 4 herbs, Wang Kai continued to make his way down the icefire yin-yang well, and he soon arrived in front of a rather strange-looking immortal grass. At the top of this immortal herb was a golden tulip. However, the roots and leaves below it were all made up of a dense and meticulous curtain of wisteria. As he approached it, an extremely rich fragrance wafted toward him, and it struck him with a sense of grandeur and splendor. This was none other than the immortal grass beautiful silk tulip that could absorb the essence of heaven and earth and the radiance of the sun and moon. Wang Kai carefully picked up his jade spade, and he was just about to stow this beautiful silk tulip into his small plane when a burst of enormous pressure suddenly crashed down toward him. The jade spade in his hand instantly exploded, and all of the muscles and bones in his body were compressed in a frenzy. Immediately thereafter, a loud roar of fury rang out beside his ears. "How dare you? Who are you? How dare you come to my place of seclusion and make such a fuss?" Chapter 109. What a powerful aura! Wang Kai tried his best to overcome the immense pressure that enveloped his body. He slowly lifted his head and looked in the direction of the sound. In midair, a tall and slender elder who resembled a javelin was slowly floating down from the top of the valley. This old man was dressed in a simple gray robe. His unkempt hair was a strange dark green color, and his eyes were like emeralds that shone brightly. Squinting his eyes to take a closer look, this elder's figure gave off an illusory feeling. It was as if he was an illusion, leaving behind a faint green afterimage in the air. Just as Wang Kai lifted his head, this elder's body had already slowly landed on the ground. Although he had jumped from a height of over 100 meters, he landed without a sound. There was not even the slightest bit of sound. "Oh, you're not dead? To be able to withstand this old man's aura, your strength is not bad. It's a pity that you dared to enter this old man's cultivation ground and steal my medicine. Today you're dead meat. Under my hands, even if the heavenly emperor comes, he won't be able to save you." Standing with his hands behind his back, the elder's dignified and angry voice reverberated throughout the valley. It was so loud that Wang Kai's eardrums trembled slightly. Immediately after, the elder's first soul ring flashed behind him. With a light wave of his right hand, a dark green venom that emitted a terrifying stench cut through the air and shot towards Wang Kai. Why did he come back at this time? This is too much of a coincidence. Looking at the green-haired elder's figure in the distance, Wang Kai's heart couldn't help but thump. Who else could this elder, who had descended from the sky, be other than the world-renowned poison Doluo, Dugu Bo? Indeed, the worst-case scenario that Wang Kai had predicted had happened. At this moment, Wang Kai had a faint understanding in his heart. The beast tide from before might not have been a test by the world's consciousness, or it might have wanted to rely on a few thousand or 10,000-year soul beasts to harm him. On the contrary, the will of the realm had created this beast tide to stall for time, so that it could await the arrival of the poison Dolu. However, Wang Kai did not regret his decision to come to the ice-fire Yin-Yang well. Since he had chosen the path of a conqueror, he had to make good use of all the resources he could. A peerless treasure trove like the ice-fire Yin-Yang well was a massive opportunity that he simply couldn't give up. If they didn't take the initiative to fight for it, this opportunity would fall into Tang San's hands, and it would be the foundation for Tang San and Shrek's 7 monsters to become gods. Furthermore, Tang San was the son of destiny who was doted on by the Dolua continent, the son of destiny. On the contrary, he was the son of destiny who was the son of destiny. If he were to hand over such an opportunity to someone else, the gap between Wang Kai and Tang San would be greatly narrowed even with the infinite martial spirit system. Shura's instant prison shadow stab. Wang Kai frantically circulated his soul power as he stared at the poison that was hurtling towards him. Immediately after, his 5th soul ring flashed. In the next instant, Wang Kai's figure suddenly disappeared from where he was, and immediately reappeared 10 meters away. A futile struggle. A hint of disdain appeared in the corners of Dugubo's eyes when he saw Wang Kai's reaction speed. Among soul masters of the same rank, this intruder's reaction speed was very good, and his soul skills were also very precise. However, if he wanted to escape from the poison Dolua's hands like this, then it would be far too easy. Dugubo flicked his finger gently, and a crisp sound rang out. Immediately, the poison in the air changed direction and shot towards Wang Kai's chest. At the same time, an extremely powerful wave of soul power spread out around Wang Kai, suppressing the space around him and preventing him from using any soul skills to escape. Emperor Shura possess. Wang Kai revealed a bitter smile as he sensed the changes in space around him. The corners of his eyes narrowed as he frantically circulated all the soul power in his body. No matter what, he had to receive this attack. Only by doing so would he be able to continue fighting with Dugubo. In the next instant, streaks of mysterious Shura's power crazily surged around Wang Kai's body. Black scales with mysterious inscriptions started to grow crazily and covered Wang Kai's entire body. At the same time, black flames started to spread across Wang Kai's scales. It was extremely dazzling. Insignificant tricks. Dugubo's eyes were as calm as an ancient well as he watched Wang Kai's transformation. After that, he turned his head and looked at the medicinal herbs that he had planted in the icefire Yin-Yang well. As a titled Dolua, even though his first soul ring was only 100-year one, he could poison a soul emperor to death in one hit. From what he could sense, Wang Kai was only a soul king. No matter how much he struggled, he wouldn't be able to survive his poison. The dark green poison instantly struck Wang Kai's chest and started to spread in all directions. Following a sizzling sound, the Shura's scales on Wang Kai's body started to melt. Countless streaks of poison passed through the Shura's scales and rushed into Wang Kai's body. Shit, I've overestimated myself. Wang Kai cursed in his heart as he sensed the poison entering his body. After all, Dugubo was a titled Dolu. Even though Wang Kai was immune to poison, he was only a soul king. Even though there was only a numerical difference between a soul king and a titled Dolua, there was an insurmountable gap between the two. With his immunity to poison, Wang Kai might be able to ignore the poison of a soul sage or even a soul dolua. However, against a titled dolua like Dugubo, he could only weaken Dugubo's poison. He couldn't be completely immune. At this moment, Wang Kai was a little regretful. Why didn't he bring the protective soul tool that Sendorio had given him with him? However, thinking about it from another perspective, this protective soul tool probably wouldn't be able to block even a casual attack from a titled dolua. Furthermore, it was very likely that Sendorio would sense it if he triggered the protective soul tool. If that happened, his secret would be exposed. However, at the same time, Wang Kai was also secretly puzzled in his heart. For some reason, when Dugubo was facing Tang San, he had only taken him away, but when facing Wang Kai, he had directly killed him? Could this be the influence of the world's consciousness? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. However, things had already come to this point. The only thing Wang Kai could do was channel all his soul power to fight against Shura's murderous aura and fight to the death against the poison that had invaded his body. Streaks of Shura's murderous aura clashed against the jade phosphorus snake's poison that had invaded his body. The most intense battle in Wang Kai's body started. Chapter 110. In Wang Kai's tendons and meridians, Wang Kai drove Shura's murderous aura into the Shura's body. Several strands of Shura's murderous aura wrapped around the jade phosphorus snake emperor's poison and started to refine it. Under the suppression of the massive amount of Shura's murderous aura, the jade phosphorus snake emperor's poison was continuously broken down. Dugubo didn't pay much attention to a Soul King. As a result, Dugubo's attack didn't contain much jade phosphorus snake emperor's poison. Very quickly, the jade phosphorus snake emperor's poison was completely refined by Wang Kai. The color of his chest gradually turned from greenish-black to the color of flesh, and the corroded Shura's scales also quickly recovered. How is this possible? You're not dead? At this moment, Dugubo turned his head and looked at Wang Kai. He frowned slightly and exclaimed softly, "Kiki, you should be proud of yourself for being able to take a move from me, Dugubo, as a Soul King." There was a trace of surprise in his eyes as Dugubo continued, "Kid, it seems like you've studied poison quite a bit. It's a pity that you're only a Soul King. If you were a Soul Dolua, you could really play with me for a few moves." Taking advantage of the fact that Dugubo didn't continue to attack, Wang Kai hurriedly shouted, "Senior, please wait." Seeing that Wang Kai had spoken, Dugubo revealed a playful look in his eyes. After that, he laughed sinisterly and said, "Oh? Kid, do you have something to say? How about this? Since we're in the same profession, if you have any last words, I'll let you finish them before you die. Senior, you and I have no enmity between us. I didn't know that this was your place of cultivation, and I didn't intend to sneak in. Since you've said that we're in the same profession, you don't have to kill a junior like me, right?" Seeing that Dugubo had stopped, Wang Kai hurriedly said, "Humph." Dugubo snorted coldly and said, "If you just want to say this, then you should just die. Do you think I'll let you leave alive after knowing where I'm cultivating?" After saying that, Dugubo was about to wave his right hand forward. "Senior, please wait." At this moment, Wang Kai hurriedly shouted again, "Kid, do you have anything else to say? If you still want to beg for mercy, then there's no need to speak." Dugubo showed a cruel smile at the corner of his mouth. He snapped his fingers lightly, and a wisp of green phosphorus snake emperor's venom that was several times stronger than before appeared directly between his fingers. "Senior, I can see that your body has been eroded by your own poison, and I have a way to help you detoxify it." Seeing that Dugubo's expression was a little impatient, Wang Kai quickly threw out his trump card. What a joke! My poison will poison myself? I'm 78 years old this year. I've always been the one poisoning others, and no one has ever poisoned me. Dugubo still looked at Wang Kai coldly, but at this time, the green phosphorus snake emperor's venom condensed in his hand had quietly disappeared. From Senior's tone, You don't seem to believe my words? In that case, let me say a few things that must have happened to you. Looking at the disappearance of the venom in Dugubo's hand, Wang Kai's heart was relieved. It seemed that half of the most dangerous level had passed. Senior, every time it's cloudy and rainy, do you have a numb and itchy feeling on both of your ribs, and this feeling will gradually increase? In addition, does this symptom occur at about 11 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock in the evening every day, and each time it occurs, it will last for more than 2 hours? Hearing Wang Kai's words, a trace of surprise immediately appeared on Dugubo's face, which was as calm as an ancient well. However, he quickly hid it. At this time, Wang Kai also continued. In addition to the numb and itchy feeling just now, I think that every night, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, Senior's head and soles will have a needle-like tingling pain, and at the same time, your whole body will be weak and even convulsed for at least an hour? If you are not poisoned, how can you have such symptoms with Senior's peerless cultivation? In my opinion, Senior is not only poisoned, but this poison has penetrated deep into your bone marrow. In addition to these previous symptoms, I can also see that if you have descendants, the poison in your body will definitely be passed on to them. If there is no accident, Senior's children will probably have similar symptoms as Senior, and may even die early. How is it possible? How do you know my physical condition so well? As soon as Wang Kai finished speaking, Dugubo could no longer hold back the shock in his heart and asked subconsciously. Wang Kai's description before was as if he had seen it with his own eyes, and these could be said to be Dugubo's biggest secrets. Even his closest granddaughter, Duguyen, didn't know. At this time, these words came from the mouth of the young man in front of him who he had never met before. How could he not be surprised? While he was surprised, the killing intent in Dugubo's eyes also surged in an instant. A cold killing intent seeped out of his body, as if it wanted to penetrate Wang Kai's entire body. As a powerful titled Doluo who had killed countless people, the killing intent from Dugubo's body was almost tangible. Waves of boundless killing intent crashed into Wang Kai's chest, causing his internal organs to tremble slightly, and there was a sweet taste in his throat. Speak. How did you know about my physical condition? Realizing that he had lost his composure, Dugubo quickly restrained his emotions, and the killing intent on his body quickly dissipated. In the next moment, Dugubo's arm stretched out, and it actually elongated instantly. He grabbed Wang Kai's neck and pulled him in front of him, and spoke in a roaring voice. Senior, the reason why I can deduce your symptoms is because I have a certain level of mastery of poison. With what I've learned, I can tell that you've been poisoned from your appearance. Although it was a little difficult to breathe, Wang Kai continued to speak word by word. I can also tell that although you've consumed some natural treasures to temporarily suppress the poison in your body and prevent it from acting up immediately, you have no idea how to completely remove the poison in your body. Sooner or later, you'll have to retract the poison. After pausing for a moment, Wang Kai looked into Dugubo's jade-green eyes and continued, although you may not believe me, I have a way to remove the poison in your body. Chapter 111. Are you saying that you have the ability to neutralize the poison in my body? After hearing Wang Kai's words, Dugubo's eyes flashed with a faint look of anticipation, but it disappeared in an instant. Dugubo released his hands and gently placed Wang Kai back on the ground. He then opened his mouth and asked in a playful tone. Evidently, he didn't believe Wang Kai's words. Yes, Dugubo had been playing with poisons his entire life. His attainments in the art of poison had reached the pinnacle of perfection. At the same time, his cultivation had reached the level of a titled Doluo, and he stood at the pinnacle of soul masters on the Doluo continent. However, even so, Dugubo couldn't do anything about the poison in his body. Dugubo had tried countless times, but these attempts all ended in failure. Furthermore, these attempts didn't improve his condition. On the contrary, they only brought him greater pain. Helpless, Dugu could only rely on medicine concocted with a large amount of natural treasures to suppress the poison in his body. Otherwise, it would explode and prolong his life. Therefore, no matter what, he couldn't believe that this mysterious youth in front of him, who was only a soul king, had the ability to neutralize the poison in his body. After all, this youth in front of him looked like he was 17 or 18 years old at most. He wasn't even 20 years old. How could his attainments in the art of poison be comparable to his own, who had been immersed in the art of poison for decades? Perhaps these words were just an attempt by this young man to stall for time? However, after thinking about it carefully, Dugu felt that Wang Kai wasn't spouting nonsense. After all, he described the symptoms in his body almost exactly. Perhaps this youth really had the confidence to neutralize the poison in his body? Faced with such an opportunity, Dugu had no choice but to give it a try. After all, even if this youth in front of him was lying, it would only delay him for a few days. However, what if he was telling the truth? What if he could really help him? Dugu was already 78 years old. In his life, his hands were stained with the blood of countless enemies. He was already indifferent to life and death. Even if he were to die from poison one day, he would not have too much regret. However, why would Dugu give up the opportunity to live longer? What's more, Dugu had always been worried about his granddaughter, Duguyen, who was only 20 years old. Dugu couldn't be at ease even if he died, thinking that she would suffer terrible pain because of him in the future. If the young man in front of him could really cure the poison, especially the poison in his granddaughter's body, to Dugu it was undoubtedly 100 times more important than the secret of the secret cultivation ground. That's right. Wang Kai's feet landed on the ground. When he saw the look of anticipation in Dugu eyes, he knew that he was already halfway to success. Wang Kai nodded heavily and said confidently, "Although my abilities are worlds apart from seniors, I still have some mastery over my own poison skills. I don't dare to brag about other poisons, but I am confident that I can neutralize the poison in your body." "Alright." Dugu nodded lightly when he heard Wang Kai's words. His tone was much calmer as he continued to ask, "Kid, what's your name?" "My name is Wang Feng." Wang Kai naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to reveal his real name to a titled Dolua who was worshipped by the Heaven Do imperial family. Instead, he casually said a familiar name. "Alright, Wang Feng. If you can really neutralize the poison in my body, I can guarantee that I won't kill you. Other than that, I also have a granddaughter who has the same symptoms as me. If you can neutralize the poison in her body, not only will I not kill you, but I can also promise to do 3 things for you. 3 things that don't cross my bottom line," Dugu said plainly when he heard Wang Kai's words. "No problem. However, I have to ask Senior to swear on his Tao heart that if I can neutralize the poison in your body, you have to promise to let me leave safely. Otherwise, your Tao heart will be shattered, and your cultivation will never improve." Wang Kai replied plainly when he heard Dugu words. Dugu was stunned. He didn't expect this young man to be so difficult to deal with. As a titled Dolo, Dugu naturally knew that although the Tao heart was an illusory existence, it wasn't something that could be made up. It wasn't something that could be joked around with. Dugu was a little angry. He couldn't help but say angrily, "Humph, kid, before you open your mouth, you didn't even ask about my reputation as Dugu. Although I've never thought of myself as a good person, I've always kept my promises. No one has ever dared to look down on my integrity like this." Wang Kai closed his eyes when he heard Dugu words. He said plainly, "That's just empty words. Words aren't proof. You have to swear on your Tao heart. Otherwise, I won't believe you." "Alright. As long as you can prove that you have the ability to neutralize my poison, I'll swear on it." Dugu eyes flashed with an ominous glint. He almost couldn't control himself. However, when he thought of his granddaughter, he forced himself to suppress his anger. Wang Kai secretly heaved a sigh of relief as he had passed the most dangerous stage. If Dugu Bo had used his full strength on him, he definitely wouldn't have been able to withstand it. However, if it was just passing his 3 tests, Wang Kai was very confident with Shura's physique and delicate fragrance and beauty. No problem. However, as for my ability to neutralize poison, how do you want me to prove it, senior? Wang Kai nodded and asked. That's simple. Prove that your ability to use poison is better than mine. Then, I'll believe you. Dugu Bo retracted the ominous glint in his eyes and replied with a cold smile. Subconsciously, he still didn't have any trust in Wang Kai. After a pause, he continued, This is my alternative residence. All kinds of medicine are planted here. Whatever you want, you can find it yourself. I'll give you a day's time. Within a day, you have the confidence to concoct all kinds of antidote. After a day, I'll use 3 types of poison on you. As long as you can use your own antidote to resist my poison, it will prove that you have the qualifications to neutralize my poison. Otherwise, you'll slowly die in endless pain. This is the price you have to pay for deceiving me. Alright, senior, no problem. However, please do not disturb me for a day. Dusting off the dust on his body, Wang Kai calmly agreed to Dugu Bo's request. Chapter 112. Of course, that's not a problem. I can give you a day to prepare alone. After hearing Wang Kai's request, Dugu Bo slowly nodded. However, I won't go far. I'll stay near this valley. Don't think about sneaking away. Brat, I remember the smell on your body. If I find out that you're trying to escape, I promise that I'll poison you with countless poisons. You'll be tortured for 81 days. You'll be better off dead as the price for lying to me. Dugu Bo revealed a cruel and terrifying smile as he spoke coldly to Wang Kai. After he finished speaking, Dugu Bo tapped his foot lightly against the ground, and his body instantly broke through the air. The tip of his foot tapped against the rock wall several times, and his body rose up into the air like a huge bird. Dugu Bo's figure had already disappeared into the white fog. At this moment, his voice could be heard clearly again. Kid, remember this. Don't touch those 2 hot springs. Even I can't withstand the heat and extreme cold there for too long. With your cultivation, you'll only die if you touch them. After watching Dugu Bo leave, Wang Kai revealed a mocking smile on his face. Without Dugu Bo's reminder, Wang Kai knew that the Icefire Yin-Yang Well was the coldest and hottest place in the world. With his current cultivation as a Soul King, he couldn't touch it. Although the hot spring water in the Icefire Yin-Yang Well didn't seem to emit any heat, Wang Kai knew that there was an extremely terrifying heat and extreme cold hidden beneath the surface. For example, the red liquid in the Icefire Yin-Yang Well was definitely thousands or even tens of thousands of degrees Celsius. It was comparable to scorching lava and could burn everything. Unless it was a defense-type soul sage who had awakened his martial soul true body, or a titled Dolua like Dugu Bo, ordinary soul masters would immediately be burned to ashes if they touched the blazing sunspring. Even though Wang Kai's Emperor Shura martial soul was one of the best among God's martial souls, he was still only a soul king. Faced with the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, Wang Kai wasn't confident that he could resist the temperature of the blazing sunspring. As cautious as he was, he didn't dare to try. As for the dark blue liquid on the other side of the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, it didn't seem any different from ordinary spring water. It was just a little darker. However, Wang Kai knew that the temperature of the blazing sunspring could reach negative hundreds of degrees Celsius. Under such low temperatures, ordinary soul masters would immediately die if they touched the blazing sunspring. Their entire body would be frozen into an ice sculpture, and they would instantly lose all signs of life. Even a god wouldn't be able to save them. If he wanted to enter the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, the only way that Wang Kai knew was to consume the star anise mysterious ice grass and the blazing delicate apricot that grew beside the Icefire Yin-Yang Well. However, Wang Kai naturally wouldn't consume them. This was because these two herbs were a gift that Wang Kai had prepared for Dugubo. Once both the star anise mysterious ice grass and the delicate flaming apricot flower were used at the same time, Dugubo would indeed be able to neutralize all the poison in his body. However, at the same time, his poison techniques and cultivation would also be neutralized at the same time, leaving him at Wang Kai's mercy. An ordinary titled Doloa without soul power would at most be comparable to an ordinary soul sage who hadn't unleashed his martial soul true body. Furthermore, Dugubo wasn't a control-type soul master who specialized in physique. He was also 78 years old, and his body was constantly being corroded by poison. His blood was deteriorating. Compared to an ordinary titled Doloa, his actual fighting strength would only be lower once he lost his soul power. At most, he would only be comparable to an ordinary soul emperor. On the other hand, Dugubo's situation was the exact opposite. Wang Kai's cultivation was only that of a soul king, but his fighting strength far exceeded that of a soul master of the same rank. Once his two martial souls were unleashed, Wang Kai's fighting strength would definitely be at the top of the Soul Emperor's. Furthermore, Dugubo's poison was countered by Wang Kai's physique. Once Dugubo lost his soul power, Wang Kai was very confident that he could kill him. However, Wang Kai was still a little wary of Dugubo. Wang Kai knew that Dugubo had a spatial-type soul tool on him, the Happy Treasures pouch. If he had stored some poison in his body, even if he had lost his soul force, Wang Kai would still have died once he released the poison at its peak. However, after careful analysis, Wang Kai still felt that Dugubo couldn't be allowed to live. Dugubo was arrogant, and he was deeply indebted to the Heaven Do royal family. No matter what, he couldn't submit to Huiyuhao, the holy son of the martial soul hall. In addition, Dugubo's body and Tang San's body also had a certain karmic entanglement. Even if he really cured Dugubo, under the influence of the world's will, it was still very likely that he would seek refuge with Tang San. On the other hand, if he could kill a titled Doloa, it would be a huge opportunity for Wang Kai. According to the system's judgment, a titled Doloa's value was comparable to 100,000-year soul beast. Once he killed a titled Doloa, although he couldn't provide Wang Kai with a 100,000-year soul ring, he could still provide Wang Kai with a huge amount of origin experience and origin points. Comparing the two, it was obvious that while killing Dugubo required a certain amount of risk, it was undoubtedly the most beneficial method for Wang Kai. Riches and honor were found in danger. Very quickly, Wang Kai made up his mind. Now, what Wang Kai had to do was to pass Dugubo's test and prepare to fight Dugubo. Evidently, Wang Kai's current physique wasn't enough to completely resist Dugubo's poison. While delicate fragrance and beauty could alleviate and suppress the poison, it couldn't completely suppress it. If he wanted to safely pass Dugubo's test, he had to use other methods. Yes, these are the ones. Wang Kai nodded as he retrieved the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum and the narcissus jade skin that he had just plucked from the small plain. Similar to the star anise mysterious ice grass and the blazing delicate apricot, the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum and the narcissus jade skin were neutral in nature, but they were also yin and yang. Compared to the star anise mysterious ice grass and the blazing delicate apricot, consuming the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum and the narcissus jade skin at the same time could form a yin-yang body that was similar to the body of ice and fire. Compared to the body of ice and fire, the yin-yang body wasn't as effective in suppressing poison. However, these two herbs were easier to absorb. Once consumed, they could quickly suppress the poison. With the yin-yang body and Emperor Shura's physique, Wang Kai was more than capable of passing Dugubo's test. The only thing that Wang Kai felt a little pity about was that his plan to recruit Chrysanthemum Doloa had to be ruined because of this. Chapter 113. Other than helping Wang Kai resist the poison and increasing his chances of passing Dugu Bo's test, the yin-yang body had an even greater benefit. It greatly increased Wang Kai's recovery ability. Once he successfully formed the yin-yang body, Wang Kai's body would be able to achieve a state where yin and yang coexisted. From then on, regardless of whether it was his soul power, spiritual power, or blood energy, Wang Kai's recovery ability would be increased by several times. To Wang Kai, who had the ability to carry an unlimited number of martial souls, this was naturally a constitution that he could only wish for. If he wanted to unleash the true strength of his unlimited martial soul constitution, Wang Kai not only needed a huge amount of soul power, he also needed a strong recovery speed. Otherwise, even if Wang Kai had many strong martial souls and soul skills, he wouldn't have enough soul power to unleash them. Therefore, to be able to form the yin-yang body was naturally a good thing for Wang Kai. Although Wang Kai had already obtained the earth strength, which provided him with a very strong recovery ability, there were certain limitations to this soul skill. If the battlefield was in the ocean or the sky, where there was no earth strength, then this soul skill wouldn't be able to provide Wang Kai with an unlimited amount of recovery. Evidently, the yin-yang body didn't have such a problem. Furthermore, even with the earth strength, to be able to obtain the yin-yang body was still a good thing for Wang Kai. After all, 1 + 1 was greater than 2. He could increase his recovery ability even more. Why would Wang Kai reject such a good thing? Originally, Wang Kai didn't want to use these two herbs to form the yin-yang body. After all, there were many ways to form the yin-yang body. Compared to forming the yin-yang body earlier, it might be more beneficial for Wang Kai to rope in 2 peak Doluan now. However, Wang Kai had no other choice now. After taking out the singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and the narcissus jade skin bone, Wang Kai no longer hesitated. He plucked a petal of the singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and a leaf of the narcissus jade skin bone and stuffed them into his mouth. Chewing lightly, a clear and sweet juice flowed down his throat, and a refreshing fragrance filled the air. A cool and warm energy intertwined and flowed into Wang Kai's meridians. Just like before, Wang Kai consumed all the petals and leaves. After that, Wang Kai removed the stamens of the singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and the narcissus muscle bone, and then he mixed them together and swallowed them. After that, Wang Kai returned the bald strange velvet chrysanthemum and the roots of narcissus jade back to the small realm. He sat down with his legs crossed, held his breath, and concentrated his mind, crazily refining the medicinal power of the 2 immortal herbs that kept surging into his meridians. The medicinal power of yin and yang intertwined in Wang Kai's meridians, and slowly flowed forward. Although the medicinal power of the singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and the narcissus jade skin bone were enormous, they were unusually gentle. They didn't cause too much of an impact on Wang Kai's body and meridians. On the contrary, they were silently nourishing Wang Kai's main meridians, and opening up many of the smaller side meridians in Wang Kai's body. At the same time, the soul force in Wang Kai's body was also wrapped up in balls of yin and yang medicinal power as he refined them. As the refinement progressed, the yin and yang medicinal power was continuously converted into new soul force and blood energy, causing the total volume and scale of the soul force in Wang Kai's body to increase at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the medicinal power was refined, the power of ice and fire in the environment slowly flowed into Wang Kai's body through his pores, and was refined along with the medicinal power by Wang Kai. Every time the power of ice and fire entered his body, Wang Kai's body would flash with a layer of faint blue and red radiance. Balls of ice and fire power and yin and yang medicinal power were continuously refined, and Wang Kai's physique was also slowly transforming into a yin and yang body. Half a day later. Ding! You have refined the Heaven Tier Level 9 medicinal herbs, singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and narcissus jade skin bone, obtained 75,000 experience. Ding! You have refined the power of ice and fire in the environment, obtained 2,500 experience. Ding. You have refined the Heaven Tier Level 9 medicinal herbs, singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and narcissus jade skin bone, forming a physique, yin and yang body. Ding. Remaining 83,500 experience points, spent 50,000 experience points to reach level 56, remaining 33,500 experience points. 4 system notifications sounded in his mind. Feeling the medicinal power in his body gradually dissipating and his soul force rising, Wang Kai slowly opened his eyes. Great, I did it! Excitedly nodding his head, Wang Kai also took the opportunity to sense the condition of his body. After successfully refining the singular velvet sky reaching chrysanthemum and narcissus jade skin bone, Wang Kai had finally succeeded in condensing his second special physique, yin and yang body. And after successfully refining the medicinal power in the medicinal herbs, a layer of black filth once again appeared on the surface of Wang Kai's body, emitting a dizzying stench. Slightly urging his soul force, Wang Kai shattered the filth on the surface of his body, revealing the white jade-like skin that shone with a beautiful luster. Meridian cleansing. Using the opportunity of refining the immortal herbs, Wang Kai completed the deepest level of refinement of his body for the 3rd time. Apart from that, after refining the 2 immortal herbs, Wang Kai's blood and qi power as well as his body's constitution had also been greatly improved. With every punch and kick, Wang Kai could feel his body brimming with power. Compared to before refining the immortal herbs, Wang Kai's strength had increased by about 50%, and his defense and agility had also increased significantly. Not only had his physique and soul force increased, Wang Kai's spiritual power had also increased by a large amount after consuming the immortal herbs. Although the 2 immortal herbs focused more on increasing a soul master's physical body, as Heaven Tier 9 herbs, they also had the supplementary effect of increasing a soul master's spiritual power. Following the increase in his spiritual power, Wang Kai's spiritual power realm also naturally broke through the 6 tasks at one time, breaking through 2 realms and directly reaching the 8 tasks at one time. The only thing that made Wang Kai a little regretful was that the source experience that refining the immortal herbs gave him this time was a little too little, and only allowed him to rise by 1 level. However, thinking about it carefully, this was a very normal phenomenon. Firstly, in just half a day, the medicinal effects of the 2 immortal herbs hadn't been completely refined. At least 70 to 80% of the medicinal effects hadn't been refined, and were hidden in Wang Kai's body. This couldn't be rushed. He could only slowly cultivate in the future to slowly refine the medicinal effects that had entered deep into his flesh and meridians, and gradually convert them into source experience. Secondly, in the medicinal effects that Wang Kai had refined this time, a small part of them had been used to condense Wang Kai's yin-yang body, and hadn't been completely converted into source experience. This was also why Wang Kai's soul force only rose by 1 level after consuming the 2 immortal herbs. After stretching his body and adapting to his new strength and soul power, Wang Kai came to the side of the icefire yin-yang well again. If he wanted to kill Dugubo in the future, there would definitely be a fierce battle. Since there was still time, he wanted to take the most valuable treasures in the icefire yin-yang well first. Chapter 114. Arriving in front of an inconspicuous short herb, Wang Kai once again stopped in his tracks. If one were to look at this herb from afar, it didn't look very different from an ordinary weed. It was green all over. However, if one were to look closer, they would discover that there were 3 small leaves that were as white as jade growing in the center of the short herb. There were several droplets of water in the center of the white leaf. They were sparkling and translucent like morning dew. This was an immortal herb, the piercing autumn dew. Unlike most natural treasures, this piercing autumn dew couldn't increase a soul master's soul power or blood essence. On the contrary, it was an extremely rare immortal herb that could increase one's spiritual power. Once a soul master consumed and refined the piercing autumn dew, their spiritual power would increase rapidly. Whether it was their perception or observation skills, they would all be significantly enhanced. There was a saying that this piercing autumn dew could allow one to cultivate a pair of fiery eyes that could see through all kinds of strange objects. Although this saying was a little exaggerated, this was how this herb got its name. After consuming the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum and narcissus jadeskin, Wang Kai's tendons and flesh were filled with their residual medicinal power. If he were to be greedy and rashly consume other herbs that could increase soul power, even if it was the most gentle 8-petal immortal orchid, it would cause the medicinal power to conflict in his tendons and vessels. Not only would he lose the medicinal power that had already entered his body, it would also harm his potential for advancement. Unlike the other immortal herbs, the piercing autumn dew wouldn't increase Wang Kai's soul power. Thus, it wouldn't clash with the other immortal herbs that Wang Kai was consuming. This was the third immortal herb that Wang Kai was preparing to consume. Spiritual power was an extremely important attribute for Wang Kai. If he wanted to truly unleash the power of his limitless martial soul physique, multitasking was an ability that Wang Kai had to master. The prerequisite for multitasking was that one's spiritual power was strong enough. Therefore, although this piercing autumn dew wasn't very useful to other soul masters, it would definitely have a miraculous effect on Wang Kai. After plucking the piercing autumn dew, Wang Kai continued to walk towards the next herb that he fancied. It was an ordinary-looking white flower about the size of a palm. The shape of the flower was similar to a peony without any leaves. Unlike other natural treasures, its roots did not sink into the soil. On the contrary, it was tightly connected to a large black rock. This was the yearning heartbroken red that was closest to the divine grade among the immortal grade herbs. The yearning heartbroken red was undoubtedly the best out of all the heavenly resources within the icefire yin-yang well. It was only a step away from the legendary god tier 10th grade. Of course, the yearning heartbroken red was the most potent, the most comprehensive, and the easiest to absorb. Even Wang Kai would be able to break through to the Soul Emperor realm if he used it. But it was a pity that the yearning heartbroken red was different from other immortal herbs. It couldn't be directly plucked and consumed. Instead, it had a magical process of choosing its owner. When plucking this yearning heartbroken red, the plucker had to think of his beloved in his heart and spit out a mouthful of blood on the petals. Only if the plucker had sincere feelings could he pluck the yearning heartbroken red from the raven stone under the flower. Even if he was half-hearted, even if he spat out blood and died, he wouldn't be able to obtain the approval of the yearning heartbroken red. And if the plucker had evil thoughts and wanted to forcefully destroy the raven stone under the flower, the yearning heartbroken red would also lose all its medicinal strength. Wang Kai knew that he was a very philanthropic person. He definitely wasn't fated with this yearning heartbroken red. Therefore, he plucked and consumed it for Chihiro Snow, who only had him in her heart. Perhaps that was the correct way to obtain this yearning heartbroken red. Yearning heartbroken red, coxcomb phoenix sunflower, 1000-year blood Ganoderma. Stalks of Heaven Rank Level 9 and Heaven Rank Level 8 heavenly treasures were collected by Wang Kai into the small plain. More than an hour later, all the heavenly treasures of Heaven Rank Level 8 and above near the icefire yin-yang well had been completely collected by Wang Kai into the small plain. If it wasn't for the lack of time, and the fear of being discovered by Dugubo if he plucked too many herbs, Wang Kai would definitely choose to take away all the heavenly treasures of Heaven Rank Level 7 and above. After all, a heavenly treasure of Heaven Rank Level 7, even if it was directly consumed, could bring Wang Kai tens of thousands of source experience. Although Wang Kai's meridians were already filled with a huge amount of immortal herbs' medicinal strength, and even if he refined these heavenly treasures of Heaven Rank, he wouldn't be able to digest them. However, sooner or later, the medicinal strength in his meridians would be completely refined. At that time, these heavenly treasures of Heaven Rank would come in handy. After putting the jade spade back into the small plane, Wang Kai immediately took out a small jade disc. After placing the jade disc on the ground, Wang Kai took out a heavenly treasure of heaven rank level 8 and level 9 dragon Ganoderma, an appropriate amount of delicate fragrance and beauty pollen, and the singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum's roots, placing them all on the jade disc. Taking out a small jade pestle, Wang Kai gently crushed the level 9 dragon Ganoderma before mixing it with the delicate fragrance and beauty pollen. He pinched the singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum's roots with both hands and crushed them. A light yellow-green liquid flowed out, mixing the delicate fragrance and beauty pollen and the level 9 dragon Ganoderma powder together to form a thick yellow-green liquid that emitted a light and elegant fragrance. Wang Kai wrapped his spiritual power around the liquid in the jade disc and let it float in the air. He condensed his soul power slightly, and a wisp of 3,000 heaven-burning flames appeared between his fingers. After that, Wang Kai gently flicked his right hand, and the 3,000 heaven-burning flames disappeared into the liquid in the air. Following the addition of the 3,000 heaven-burning flames, the viscous liquid in the air slowly began to bubble and condense. In the end, it formed a yellow-green pill that was the size of a marble with a slightly bumpy surface. Without going through the 5 steps of tempering and fusing, this pill wasn't even a level 1 pill. However, considering the precious heavenly treasures used to refine it, the actual effect of this pill was definitely comparable to a heavenly rank pill. This was a method recorded in the True Alchemy Solution. Although the effect of the pills refined by this method would certainly be much worse than those refined by using the same materials, and it would also be unable to fully utilize the medicinal efficacies of the heavenly treasures. However, this crude pill could still integrate a part of the medicinal efficacies of the heavenly treasures, and its effect would still be much better than taking the heavenly treasures alone. The level 9 dragon Ganoderma, delicate fragrance and beauty pollen, and singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum were all very resistant to the Dugu Bow's snake venom. The antidote formed by the 3 of them was even more miraculous. This was also Wang Kai's last line of defense against the Dugu Bow. After storing the antidote into the jade bottle, Wang Kai closed his eyes and meditated as he waited for the Dugu Bow's arrival. Chapter 115. The next morning, Dugu Bow's voice drifted from the top of the valley just as the first ray of sunlight shone down from the top of the valley. "Kid, are you ready to accept my test?" Dugu Bow gently landed at the bottom of the valley and strode over to Wang Kai's side as he questioned him coldly. "Senior, please wait for a moment." Wang Kai stood up from the ground and replied as he took out a jade bottle. He unscrewed the jade stopper and took out the antidote pill that he had prepared beforehand and swallowed it. Immediately, an extremely refreshing medicinal power rose from Wang Kai's mouth and flowed into Wang Kai's blood. Seeing Wang Kai's smooth movements, Dugu Bow's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He opened his mouth and asked indifferently, "Medicinal pill?" "Senior, this isn't a pill." Wang Kai shook his head and explained, "I only plucked a few stalks of spiritual herbs that have antidote effects from the side of the pool and concocted an antidote pill. It's still far from being a real pill." "Herbs from the side of the pool?" Dugu Bow frowned and asked in disbelief, "Kid, are you able to identify the medicinal properties of these strange herbs by the side of the pool?" Ever since Dugu Bow had found the icefire yin-yang well, he had discovered that there were many herbs here that he did not recognize. He had tried to test the medicinal properties of these herbs, but those attempts had caused him unforgettable pain. Furthermore, he would have been poisoned to death several times over if it weren't for his powerful abilities and his martial soul's terrifying poison resistance. Therefore, Dugu Bow didn't dare to believe that Wang Kai had the ability to identify the medicinal properties of these herbs. "I've only seen descriptions of some spiritual herbs in the ancient books of my clan. I didn't expect that I would be lucky enough to encounter them during this training trip. There are herbs that can remove the poison in your body among the herbs around the pool. That's why I said that I'm confident that I can cure your poison. Wang Kai answered Dugubo's question with a half-truth. Is that so? I see. Dugubo nodded. His expression was still as calm as ever, but countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Pill refinement, ancient books of his clan, and training outside. Could it be that this youth in front of him is a junior from one of the hidden ancient clans on the Doloa continent? As a titled Doloa and a consecrator of the Heaven Do Empire's imperial family, Dugubo naturally knew many secrets of the Doloa continent. For example, he had learned from the Heaven Do Empire's secret database that there were many hidden ancient clans on the Doloa continent. Most of these ancient clans were the descendants of the legendary god. They usually lived in the secret realms created by the gods with great magic power and never participated in the disputes of the continent. Only every few decades or even hundreds of years would they send some outstanding disciples out to gain experience. When he thought about this youth's cultivation and fighting experience that far surpassed his peers, Dugubo was even more certain of his guess. Looking at this youth's calm and confident appearance, if he's from one of those hidden ancient clans, perhaps he really has the means to cure me and my granddaughter? When he thought of this, a glimmer of hope ignited in Dugubo's heart. His originally tense expression and cold tone couldn't help but become gentler. Wang Feng, can we begin? As he spoke, Dugubo also secretly made a decision. The test that he gave Wang Kai couldn't be too harsh. Firstly, Dugubo still hoped that Wang Kai could cure him and his granddaughter. If he wasn't careful and used too much poison and poisoned Wang Kai to death, his rare chance of recovery would disappear. Furthermore, this youth came from a hidden ancient clan, and was most likely one of the top geniuses in that clan. If he killed him, it might attract the old monsters from those ancient clans to descend into the world, and cause endless trouble in the future. Seeing the slight change in Dugubo's expression, Wang Kai was secretly delighted. It's done. What he said before was to create the appearance that he had power and inheritance. This would make Dugubo believe that he had the ability to cure him, and also create a kind of deterrence so that he wouldn't go all out against him. Now, it seemed like his plan was already more than half successful. Nodding slightly, Wang Kai said seriously, Elder, I'm already prepared. Please begin your test. Are you really prepared? Dugubo condensed all the poison in his body as he asked again. Yes, Elder, please. Wang Kai nodded again and gestured for him to begin. All right. Dugubo nodded and didn't say anything else. After this, he flicked the middle finger of his right hand towards Wang Kai. Suddenly, a faint green fog silently appeared and completely dispersed in an instant. It enveloped Wang Kai's body. Dugubo lived up to his name as the Grandmaster of Soul Poisoners and a super-powerful titled Dolu. His poison seemed simple, but it wasn't weak at all. As the poisonous fog dispersed, streaks of faint green poisonous gas surged wildly into Wang Kai's body. They quickly passed through his skin and entered Wang Kai's body. Compared to the poisonous gas that enveloped the poison array outside the valley, the poison that Dugubo released this time was undoubtedly more concentrated and powerful. However, the moment the poisonous gas entered Wang Kai's body, the cooling medicinal strength of the antidote pill formed by the Grade 9 Dragon Ganoderma, delicate fragrance and beauty, and singular velvet sky chrysanthemum immediately surrounded him. It enveloped almost all of the poisonous gas and quickly neutralized and dispersed it. After being neutralized by the antidote pill, more than 99% of the poisonous gas that Dugubo released this time was completely neutralized. The remaining 1% of the poisonous gas entered Wang Kai's tendons and meridians and clashed intensely with Shura's baleful aura and yin and yang power that had already gathered there. They were outnumbered. Although Dugubo's poisonous gas was very strong, the remaining poisonous gas was quickly destroyed by Shura's baleful aura and yin and yang power. Wang Kai's expression didn't change as he stood in the poisonous fog. He didn't move at all. After half a minute, he slowly opened his mouth and asked, Elder, have I passed your first test? The poisonous fog that Dugubo released this time was only a probing attack. Its strength was at most slightly stronger than the poisonous liquid attack that he had used on Wang Kai the first time. Wang Kai could already resist an attack of this level before he cultivated his yin-yang body and consumed the antidote pill, let alone now. Not bad. You've passed the first test. Dugubo nodded. His eyes flickered with green light. After that, he flipped his palm, and a small jade-green snake appeared in his palm. For the second test, you just have to let it bite you. As he spoke, he tossed the small snake towards Wang Kai.